Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to be with you again. We'll talk some Utah football today as we are 50 days away from the Utah football season, kicking off August 30th against UCLA at the Rose Bowl, late game. Maybe you go to it live. Maybe you're just watching it. The sun will have set. It'll be cooling down at your home in Salt Lake City. The dogs and burgers and ribs and everything will have come off the barbecue, and you'll be ready to watch some Utah football. That's 50 days hence. Can't wait. The Sean O'Connell Show is now brought to you very proudly by Big Willie's Sports Bar in Salt Lake City. Craft food, craft cocktails, the sports bar for Salt Lake City, run by actual real personal friends of mine, folks that I have known since I was working in the bar industry as a college student, and we're very, very excited to have Big Willie's on board with the Sean O'Connell Show. They've always been good to us. They will continue to be so. So the perfect place to go down, grab some lunch, watch some Wimbledon, take advantage of the food and drink specials that they have every single day. Anytime there's a big pay-per-view fight card, Big Willie's has that, and obviously NFL games, Utah football games, most importantly. They've got it all on the dozens of televisions that they continue to upgrade. They always upgrade the menu. Check them out, Big Willie's. Man, that feels good to have Big Willie's on board, James.
It does, and I know you have a personal connection to the owners there. You said was it Lumpy's when you worked there?
Way back in the day.
Which
my first
was it?
My first job as a Utah football player, because obviously when you're a walk-on, you still got to work. You got to find something that fits into the football schedule.
Yeah.
Lumpy's on Highland Drive, which no longer exists. Lumpy's was, it was a Utah bar.
Yeah.
And they hired a bunch of us that were, nobody's walk-ons, red shirt kind of guys. And we worked the door and we worked security. And then they opened Lumpy's downtown several years later, and I worked there. And I worked for the that family of bars, which is wild to say now, for like 7 or 8 years. And then both Lumpies are closed now, but a lot of the folks, like the bar named Sue is now somebody that I worked with for a long time, owned by those same people. They've got 2 locations. Big Willie's, same thing, folks that worked with me in the Lumpies family. And Big Willie's is like the one that is nearest and dearest to what Lumpies used to be. It's a true sports bar. And we get to be partners. And Patrick Manos and company that run that thing have been good to me since I was a 21-year-old doorman at Lumpy's.
That's amazing. And so obviously they're keeping that Ute sports bar feel to it, but I've also heard that they've got some Kansas State Wildcats in the family among the management there. So they have like local Kansas State fan club chapters do watch parties
which
there.
Which will only create a conflict a couple times a year. It'll be fine.
So if you're from the Kansas area and you're a recent transplant, or you're traveling listening to sports radio from the Kansas area, you have a place to watch Wildcats games too in Big Willie's.
They'll do a fun bus from the bar to the Ute games, up to campus for home games, and obviously they'll do watch parties for the away games.
Yeah.
Same thing with Utah Mammoth games. You're going to have an opportunity to really get involved at Big Willie's, and tell them OC sent you, and you might get a little extra because they're good to us that way.
Yeah, and since they're a title sponsor, that means if you're watching on YouTube at ESPN 700 Sports Utah, or watching our YouTube stream on the new ESPN 700 app, which is awesome that you can watch our videos on our app too, you'll see the Big Willie's logo in the corner there. So we're happy to have Big Willie's officially on board as the official title sponsor of the Sean O'Connell Show.
So we got a fun show lined up for you today, brought to you by Big Willie's, and Bill Riley's going to join us in about 20 minutes. Josh Furlong is going to swing by. Adrian Denny between the pipes, brought to you by Angora and Aladdin Industries. Airing of grievances coming up at 1:30, and a lot to discuss as we fill in the rest of those gaps. Wimbledon, you've had some incredible matches right now. You've got Yannick Sinner kind of putting on a little bit of a clinic against Novak Djokovic, and James Peterson, I didn't know this about him, is kind of a Joker hater.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
he's happy to see Yannick Sinner, the steroid abuser. You'd rather root for him than Novak Djokovic.
He was exonerated for that, but that aside, you got to love the Sinner. Okay, that's how I was raised. So
right.
we have to have love for Yannick Sinner because you have to love the Sinner. No, I'm more of a Batman guy than a Joker guy. No, I've never liked Novak Djokovic. I see Nadal was my favorite growing up. Obviously, he's now retired, so I think Alcaraz has become my favorite of the current crop of players. Federer was the guy that was just fun to root against, so that's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards Nadal, but I didn't ever have any hate towards him. Djokovic, I just never liked. But he should be. He deserves all the praise he's getting as possibly the greatest of all time. I would say Federer is probably the greatest of all time, but Nadal was my favorite.
So you just mentioned Alcaraz. My wife is at Wimbledon and got a chance to watch that Fritz Alcaraz.
What a match to be in person
for.
Yeah,
she was there in person, and I'm jealous of that. I have a little FOMO for that. But what I'm actually worried about, I showed you the picture.
Yeah,
you
have reason to be worried.
I hope my wife is coming back because she sent a picture. She was two seats behind Leonardo DiCaprio for that whole match. Now, the only solace I find is that my wife is in her early 30s, and that makes her much too old for Leonardo DiCaprio. If she was like a 22-year-old version of herself, I would never see her again. But
yeah.
I think that Leo is his predilections are for the much younger women. So yeah, I think I'll be okay.
That's how you're rationalizing it.
I think I'll be okay.
Okay.
It's weird, though. She's not answering my text, James. It's going to be fine.
She's also, you said she was sitting a few rows over from the royal box?
Yeah. Of course.
So Camilla and company?
Of course, it's because it's in England. There's a royal box.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
The royal family just not so far away. So my wife living it up in the fancy style.
Man,
at Wimbledon right now.
I know
I'm over here digging ditches on the radio.
I know you had the opportunity to go to Wimbledon with her and your in-laws, right? And it's a big family trip in England. But you have the PFL event next week, so you weren't able to, or
Big 12 media
days this week and
PFL next week. And look, I mean, I miss enough because of my PFL duties. I can't just be like, all right, James, I'm also gone because I got to go. It would have been cool to be like an on-site, an on-site correspondent.
Absolutely.
For ESPN 700, just whispering into my phone as they're serving. All right, Alcaraz is about to. Oh, that's an ace.
And then me or Scott or both of us would facetiously say, "Quiet, please."
Yeah.
Quiet, please, OC.
Yeah, and then some British person would come up and take my phone away and just be like, "You need to leave."
By the way, I love tennis, and I have a respect for the etiquette of, hey, you don't talk while the play is going, but also it's a little ridiculous, and I think it's even more ridiculous that ESPN, have you seen their promos? They're putting "quiet please" in the promos to make you like pumped for the big match. It's like it shows highlights, like for this one it would have shown highlights of Sinner and Djokovic, and then a big graphic that says "quiet please," and then it says ESPN's coverage of Wimbledon. I'm like, that doesn't pump me up. I don't think you. That's weird that you put that in the promo.
All right. So Wimbledon's going on right now. The countdown to the Utah football season is happening in earnest. We've got a start bench cut on the show today that I think is going to be tough for people. Maybe not. We'll see. Start bench cut, Utah football safeties in the non-Power 5 era. Okay? So this is pre-Pac-12. Eric Weddle, Robert Johnson, Morgan Scalley. Start one, bench one, cut one. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. You got to start one of those safeties. You got to bench one. You got to cut one. Honorable mention to Harold Lusk. Honorable mention to Steve Marshall. I will stop all of you out there who's going, what about Larry Wilson? Larry Wilson was primarily a running back at the University of Utah. He was an All-American performer and All-Conference, All-Skyline performer as a running back, as a halfback. And his he was a two-way starter, but he played corner primarily. So you can't put him with the other great safeties because he didn't make the transition to safety until pro football. And it's a testament to how well-rounded he is as an athlete because he was about to be cut. He was like a 7th-round draft pick. He was about to be cut because they're just like, you're too small to be a running back, which is crazy. And you're not an ideal corner. And he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna try out playing safety. It's something he dabbled with in high school and at the University of Utah. He's like, well, make me a safety, and ended up being a Hall of Fame safety for the Arizona Cardinals. And it works out nicely. He also was one of the first guys that really pioneered safety blitzes because, remember, he was playing in the 50s and 60s where teams were still figuring out all the things you could do with football.
Yeah.
So Larry Wilson was a Pro Football Hall of Fame safety, but as a college player, he was primarily a running back and secondarily a corner on the Utah defense. So we're not going to do that.
He really didn't get any snaps at safety, it sounds like, at Utah. Maybe
he was not a starter, a safety starter. I mean,
maybe
by
it was
the way,
long enough ago, you probably don't know. But
good
maybe
luck
he got
going
some.
back and finding reliable film from the 1955 season at Utah football. And like taking, well, that's Larry Wilson lining up at safety. All right.
50s college football, you probably only have film of Notre Dame, Army, and I don't know.
It's like Army, Navy, Notre Dame,
like
USC.
I would doubt that you could find anything for the University.
We didn't even keep
respect.
reliable stats back then.
It's
they
like
didn't even like things like tackles and total tackles weren't even official stats. Hell, sacks weren't even an official stat until the 1990s.
Yeah. So
in any case,
you're not going to be able to make a case that he played enough safety.
We will hone in on the ones that we know.
But
Start,
shout out
bench,
to Larry
cut.
Wilson, absolutely.
So you've got Weddle, who was a defensive player of the year. You've got Scally, who was a co-defensive player of the year with Kirk Morrison his senior season, that undefeated Fiesta Bowl year. You got Rojo, who's multiple-time all-conference, and honestly played for a better defense probably. So who are you going to give your start, bench, cut to? Start one, bench one, cut one. Eric Weddle, Rojo, and Morgan Scally, who, of course, is now your head coach in waiting at the University of Utah. Also, on the pop culture front, start one, bench one, cut one, James. HBO drama series. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
I did not watch Game of Thrones.
Okay.
I'm
Did you watch The Sopranos?
I did not watch Sopranos. I'm just barely getting into
Did you watch
HBO.
The Wire?
No. So I'm not good with this.
Okay, so James doesn't get to participate.
I'm not good with this. I'm just barely. I never had HBO when those shows were going on.
Yeah, neither did I. I've gone back.
I know you can watch them now, and I just haven't gone back.
Yes,
to watch
when you get a chance.
Yeah.
The Sopranos is.
People talk about The Sopranos and The Wire like they're all-time greatest shows ever.
They're absolutely all-time top 5 in my opinion. Game of Thrones was a cultural phenomenon in a way that even neither of those shows were, and kind of fizzled out at the end because, again, there was no actual source material written by the creator and author for them to go off of for that final season.
See, with Game of Thrones, I know the references because it was such a pop culture phenomenon, and I know what it's about. I know way less about what The Sopranos and The Wire are about, other than The Wire's like cop drama, detective drama.
Yes,
in Baltimore,
and
right?
The Sopranos is an organized crime.
Is the mob, but I feel like I know more details about Game of Thrones, even though I haven't watched it because it was such a in my era as a young adult in his 20s, that was still going on. So, by the way, the Wire, other ones were a little older.
The Wire is still a great show. Love it, absolutely love it. The Wire, even more. Game of Thrones is like medieval with dragons, right? But it's so funny because Game of Thrones, you just suspend your belief. You say, all right, dragons and magic and all that stuff exists. The Wire, as great as it is now, can't hold up at all because the Wire, right, refers to them tapping into payphones in order to bust this like drug ring. And obviously I'm being incredibly reductive there, but like the show came out.
The technology is so dated now.
The show came out while there were still payphones on every corner, and it's like if you couldn't do that show in 2025. No. You couldn't even write it.
If you're and I certainly am old enough to remember payphones on every corner, but if you're Gen Z, the younger generation than me, you probably see that as a period piece, not as like a current drama.
Absolutely.
While those of us who are old enough to remember payphones probably see it as like, oh, that still feels like a current drama to me.
The Wire,
even though it's dated.
The Wire is fantastic, but it is predicated on payphones and pagers in a way that like a young person would just be like, this is the easiest thing in the world to solve. Just you get a regular cell phone.
Just get a regular cell phone.
Anyway, so
HBO drama series.
HBO drama series, and more importantly, Utah football safeties from the pre-Power 5 era. Start one, bench one, cut one. Weddle, Rojo, Scally, Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones.
I'm gonna have to abstain from the.
That's okay.
From the pop culture.
And
one.
I made it HBO specific.
I'll take our listeners' word for it.
I made it HBO specific because like there's so many drama series like that people. The Walking Dead, people went bananas over. What was the one about Prison Break? People went
Prison
crazy
Break,
over.
That's one of my all-time favorites. Yeah.
People loved Lost. A lot of folks say that Breaking Bad is the best television show ever, and Better Call Saul is supposed to be really good also. Never seen those. I tried to watch Breaking Bad twice. I got 2 episodes in. It's just too dark, too disturbing. I don't like it.
Just made you feel yucky. Huh?
I just don't like it. So in any case, start one, bench one, cut one on all of those. The other thing, we came away from one of the big headlines coming away from Big 12 Media Days that we didn't really dive into during the broadcast at the Star in Frisco because, Spence and I are tag teaming that broadcast and we're doing interviews. And because of that, you can't really pay attention live to everything that's being said and everything that's happening on the stage and on the podium. And Kenny Dillingham, who his status as a coach in the Big 12 Conference and in the national landscape of college football is so drastically elevated over it was last year, and he's earned it, and I have no problem with it, but it's wild to see, Kyle Whittingham gets respect because of his longevity, and Deion Sanders is paid attention to because he's Deion and he's got that charisma and things like that. Last year, you probably had 10% of the gathered audience listening to the words that Kenny Dillingham had to say with like serious enthusiasm. And this year it was everybody because that's a conference championship winning coach. That's a guy who looks like he's building a model of success in Tempe, Arizona that, first of all, defies expectation, but also is sustainable and makes sense in a way that I don't know if it does at Colorado even. I don't know if it does at Utah under Morgan Scalley. I obviously am optimistic and I hope so, but Arizona State has been one of those teams, and I've said it many, many times. They're a sleeping giant in in college sports. That campus is amazing. The campus culture, the party world, the best looking men and women on campus as part of the student body. Like, it's absolutely what you want as an athlete in any sport, but in football especially. You go to a place like that on a recruiting trip, and the only thing that was holding them back before is, well, do I really want to come here and get beat up on by USC and get beat up on by Oregon and Washington and get beat up on now by Utah too? I don't know, man. I want to go to a place where I can win. And now you can win and you can get paid in a way that we're going to get to here in just a second. But Kenny Dillingham, in his on-stage thing, and I didn't get to listen to it until after we were off air, he said, we don't know what the rules are as coaches with NIL. They're making offers. They're getting commitments. We don't know what the real rules are. We don't know how it's going to be enforced. And a rash of articles is written about that statement. Some people being critical of him and saying you have to know what the rules are. Most people realizing the situation that all coaches are in, including Kenny Dillingham, including Kyle Whittingham, including Kalani Sitake, where the information is not complete and it is always being updated. And they're just kind of like, I think we can do this. Let's ask forgiveness rather than permission. And now, partially because of news coming out of Utah State, and now today, the new sort of response to that comment is, well, actually nobody knows what to do, because we went in college football over the course of the last 3-4 years. We went to a place where collectives and the people running the collectives at schools, especially the big-time schools, were completely in charge of roster construction. They got a list from the head coach. This is who I want. This is who I need. Get this person for me. And then the collective handled the accrual of funds, the distribution of funds, the paperwork associated with that to say, like, here's how it's going to go. Players were signing deals and then breaking those deals. So, okay, now let's go back to the drawing board and make sure that we put some level of guarantee in here. If we're going to offer you $5 million or $2 million or $500,000, like, what does that entail? And coaches and collectives started to say, well, if you want to get all of your money, if you want to get every paycheck in this deal, you have to play through the bowl week. And you heard Keanu Tanavasa on our airwaves saying that, like, he had a contract on his desk for a month from the University of Utah before he signed it because he didn't know if he was going to make the decision. And you saw Smith Snowden talk about how he was waffling a little bit. And you heard about the Cam Calhoun situation last year where, like, there was not clarity on what his decision was going to be because he was holding out for the final paycheck he was going to get from the University of Utah before he made a decision, right? So collectives started to put that stuff in there, and they started to get better at communicating with the coaches and better at communicating their needs and player needs and team needs. And just when we get to a point where collectives are starting to make sense of the contracts that they put in front of student athletes, and just when we got to a point where coaches felt like they had a bit of a groove with their collectives and that hierarchy had been sort of figured out, every coach effectively had put a GM in place, and that GM was working very closely with collectives. Now, this new CSC, College Sports Commission, NIL Go, the new app that you're supposed to run your NIL deals through, they're supposed to be approved within 5 days or rejected within 5 days. The College Sports Commission and the folks processing these deal applications through NIL Go are so drastically understaffed right now, according to multiple reports, that the vast majority of the deals that are put in for review time out before the 5-day window is closed.
Of course they do.
And they get automatically rejected because they time out. So then if you're at a collective, you're at a school, you're at a university, you have to say, all right, let's resubmit this because this kid needs his money and wants his money. So they resubmit it. And then the next 5 days goes past. And then it's rejected again because it times out. And here's where the real kicker comes in for a lot of these schools that have leaned so heavily into their collectives. The College Sports Commission and NIL Go released literature and language that effectively says anything that comes through a collective, any agreement that you have with a collective, does not qualify as a legitimate business, as a legitimate NIL deal.
Oh my God.
So now collectives that schools spent millions of dollars and thousands of man-hours putting together, according to the new College Sports Commission and according to NIL Go, are now obsolete, useless, and actually, beyond that, are detrimental and problematic for you if you're a student athlete, because every negotiation you had with a collective, every conversation and agreement you had with the collective is now, according to the new ruling body, going to be determined invalid as an NIL endorsement. Because guess what? Collectives, by definition, so far, have not been a business entity that offers goods and services to the public.
Yeah.
And the CSC and NIL Go say that in order for this to be a legitimate business deal, a legitimate NIL deal, it has to be an agreement between you, the player, and a business that offers services, goods or services to the public. Meaning, like, if you want this to be a real endorsement, a real true representation of, we get lost what name, image, and likeness means. It's endorsement.
Yeah, it's
not using your name,
play.
Your image, and your likeness to say, I'm Sean O'Connell, I drive a Harley Davidson, and so should you. Right? That's what endorsements have been forever. It's Matthew McConaughey driving around in a Lincoln.
Yeah.
Speaking in a big dramatic voice, right? And players haven't had to do any of that. They just make an agreement with their collective, and the collective collects the money and distributes the money. Well, guess what? Collectives don't sell anything to me or you. No, collectives don't give you cars.
They're like a fundraising hedge fund for college athletes.
That's
really all they were.
They're a bank for college athletics.
Yeah, it's like, which I think this is good in the long run, that these rules are being structured against collectives, because that's not been true NIL. It just feels like terrible timing. It feels like, wait, we're not going to give any kind of like ramp up period to when these collectives, so that schools and these donors who are also business owners can adjust to things. No, we're just going to, invalid, because we were understaffed, because we overpromised. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's such a mess, and it's so insane. And look, the only solace you can find is that everyone is going through the same thing.
Yeah.
But guess what? Priority is like Utah State and their deals are going to be at the end of the line.
Yeah.
USC is going to be at the front of the line. And this College Sports Commission they know where their bread is buttered. They're not going to be handling the endorsement deal for the Sacramento State quarterback until Rocco Becht is done and Sam Levitt is done and Seton from Colorado. Like, they're just going to – it's such a mess. Again, college sports. Again, leadership in the NCAA world. Again, you have created this disgusting mess that we destroyed it all, burnt it down, and started to build it up for the last 4 years. And now it's being burnt down again. And maybe it's to the overall benefit of college sports in general at the end of the day. I don't necessarily believe that, because I think there's going to be extreme litigation. And putting this genie back in the bottle, as I've said many times, is impossible. The only really good thing here is that it's a pretty easy fix. If you're a collective, and if you are someone who worked for a collective, your job is, I guess, gone now. Like, you're probably, whatever salary you were collecting to oversee the collective, you're probably fired pretty soon. The way that you could save yourself is you just say, all right, this is how they're going to run it. Here's what I'm going to do. Instead of the Crimson Collective, which Mark Harlan, when he joined us, to his credit, he said already they've been working through the Crimson Collective in the past. They're not so much anymore, right? But let's say you're somebody who's been in that world. You've been fundraising. You've been talking to businesses. The businesses have been giving the money to the collective. Instead, now you just say, I'm going to broker this deal directly. You are already giving us $100,000 to the collective. That $100,000 was already going to Spencer Fano or whoever. Instead, we're going to make this a deal between Big Willie's Sports Bar and Spencer Fano. That's it. You're going to sign that paper. We're going to submit that paper. It's going to time out 2 or 3 times, but when they finally get to the point where they review it, they're going to see that it is a business that provides goods and or services to the public. It's them providing an endorsement opportunity and the compensation for it to a player. And they have to sign off on that. Collectives are dead. Everything that everything that they tried to do, everything that this last 3-4 years, the new system that was being built, they blew it up again. Truly. And the system they put in place, I would be fine with it if the system that they put in place was ready to handle the workload, but they are not. They're not even close. You know how you could test it out yourself? Go right now to Indeed or Monster or whatever job site that you look for, that you try to find employment opportunities at. Go look up college sports commission jobs. They're still hiring, dog. Maybe you can get hired. Maybe it'll be your job to go in and every 5 days be like, sorry, we haven't looked at this yet. Rejected. Insane. All right, got to take a break. Bill Riley's going to join us on the other side. We're just getting started on a Friday. Going to have a little bit of fun on the show. It's ESPN 700, 92 on FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Sean O'Connell Show on a Friday. We welcome the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Talk a little Utah football. We're now 50 days away from the kickoff of the Utah football season. Bill and Scott Mitchell and Sly will be down at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena for a 9 p.m. kickoff on Fox against UCLA to start the season. Bill, welcome to the show. How are you?
It feels like I was just on it the other day. Oh, I was.
Yeah, that's correct. You were. That's right. Before we get to anything, processing our takeaways, the postmortem of Big 12 Media Days, start, bench, cut. Having a little bit of fun with this as the offseason progresses for Utah football. Start, bench, cut, Utah football greats from the pre-Pac-12 era. So non-Power 5 safeties. Rojo, Weddle, Scally. Start one, bench one, cut one.
See, here's where we're going to have a disagreement because Eric Weddle played more games at corner at the U than he played at safety. I went through this many years ago when I did my all-time Utah Kyle Whittingham era teams, and Eric technically played more games at corner by about 8 or 9 than he did at safety.
But he was defensive player of the year in the Mountain West Conference twice, primarily playing safety.
I'm just telling you, more games played, though, at corner than safety. That being said, start Weddle, bench Scally, and cut Rojo.
Okay. All right.
I would have to guess that's probably what most people said. I mean, you could make a pretty good case for Scally, too, because he was Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year his senior year. So there's a pretty good case to be made that he could be there. But if we're counting overall body of work, both as a corner and a safety, which it sounds like you are, I'll go with Weddle.
Well, if we did a start bench cut all-time defensive players at any position, I think Weddle's the guy you got to start because of that versatility. But in any case, also, yes. I know James was not able to weigh in on this because he's a charlatan, but HBO dramas series, start one, bench one, cut one, The Wire, Sopranos, Game of Thrones.
Well, The Wire is my favorite show of all time, so that's an automatic start. It's 20-plus years old, still holds up today. I think the best writing and character development for real life of all time. So I go there, start unequivocally, best show of all time. Benching Game of Thrones, despite its somewhat clunky ending, a 9-season run, either 8-season run is very impressive. Again, great character arcs and developments. And then Sopranos still very good, and in some ways should get credit because the Sopranos kind of kicked off the HBO run of great television dramas. And Tony Soprano today remains one of the great love 'em, hate 'em villains of all time, right up there with Walter White and others. But I will unfortunately cut The Sopranos.
All right, fair enough.
Where did you go?
I'm starting.
You started Game of Thrones. I know you did. Fantasy dork.
Correct. Despite the clunky ending, Game of Thrones was just. I mean,
it was awesome.
It was so special. It was like a cultural phenomenon in a way. I know social media helped, but in a way that even those other great shows were not. And I'm I'm actually cutting The Wire. I love it almost as much as I love it almost as much as you do, but it was so dependent on its era. Like payphones and pagers, it just like it's not as timeless as organized crime, mob stuff, and obviously complete and utter fantasy like Game of Thrones can be watched.
It was organized crime and stuff. It was just inner city organized crime, not Italian mafia organized crime.
But even like The Wire itself now refers to a dead technology that they can't even pull off anymore because they relied so much on that particular thing. And look, you're really splitting hairs here, but I had to make a decision one way or another. So I'm going start Game of Thrones, bench Sopranos, cut The Wire.
Here was the other problem I had with Sopranos, and I watched it back relatively recently, some episodes. The Sopranos always had 2 or 3 episodes a season that had nothing to do with the storyline. It was Tony going off and being a salesman, and he was dreaming, there was a few episodes that you were just like, what is this? I don't know what this is, where The Wire and Game of Thrones always kind of were pushing and forward. There were no kind of side paths, if that makes sense.
The Wire, the time they did that, they did a whole full season of On the Docks. It ended up actually being a really good thing. So,
but every season had its own storyline. I guess my point is every season was pushing a story. There was no episode out of nowhere where McNulty went to Florida on vacation, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. You're making a strong case, Bill, and I like it. All right,
Okay.
let's get to some Utah football stuff. The Big 12 Media Day wrap up. You know, you go back, you listen to some of the sound you didn't hear, you read some of the articles you have not yet read, and one of the things that really stuck out for me was Kenny Dillingham and other coaches supporting this. Like head coaches in the past, you would never hear them say, "I don't know the rules. I don't know what's happening." And like 5 guys at Big 12 Media Days admitted that, you know, this whole NIL go and a college sports commission, and does your collective actually mean anything, or is it just revenue sharing now? Can you do endorsement deals or can you not? Like everyone alluded to that almost on some level. And I wonder how much you think that's going to affect college football moving forward as the NCAA, as the powers that be, try to ramp up this college sports commission, which right now sounds like an absolute disaster. You know, athletes are waiting to get paid. They're sitting there saying, "Hey, we got camp starting in 3 weeks, but I was told I would get X amount of dollars, and now it's not being shared with me." How much is this going to affect the upcoming season, if at all?
Well, I don't think it's going to impact the upcoming season, but I think moving forward, I think the powers that be are going to not be the powers that be that they are now. It's kind of what we've talked about for years, where there's going to come a point where the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Big Ten are just like, hey, you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. We're going to make our own rules. We're going to make a split here. Now, whether that's the Super League or whatever it is, but I think these leagues, you know, all this, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Everybody's been ramping this up. Schools have been scrambling and trying to get the rev share number they need, and now there's, you know, the issues you were just talking about. I just think that people in places of power within college football that are not the NCAA and some of these other places are going to get really tired really fast. And they're just going to say, we can do this better. And they're going to try to do it better. I don't know when that is, whether that's a year from now or whatever, because obviously it can't happen now. But I just think there's going to be some frustration, and somebody's going to be like, we can do this better. Let's streamline it and go.
So another thing that you come away from an event like Big 12 Media Days with is usually some consensus idea, or at least generally so, of who in the league, the other coaches in the league are kind of looking at as their biggest threats. And last year it was, everyone said, man, Utah is going to be really good, and Oklahoma State's probably going to be pretty good, and Kansas State is always pretty good. This year, everyone was kind of like, Arizona State and Texas Tech's got a bunch of talent, but also Baylor's really good, and Utah healthy is scary, and if BYU can figure out their quarterback situation, and it was kind of like a lack of consensus that really struck me. You had different conversations than I had. You had probably more conversations with coaches than I had. What did you come away with on that front?
Well, the same thing as you. I don't think there's a consensus. I think a lot of people are leaning ASU just because they were the defending champs, and they bring back their quarterback, and they bring back a star wide receiver and a couple of good defensive players. But the sense I got was nobody is a consensus. I think everybody's curious to see if the Texas Tech experiment can work, spending, you know, anywhere from 30 to 50 million, depending on who you talk to. Here's what I will say, though. I think going into Big 12 Media Day, Utah wasn't being talked about much. The sense I got coming out of Big 12 Media Day, both talking to people and reading post-Media Day stories and then looking at odds, you know, the FanDuels and that of the world, I think the Utes are now among the teams that people are talking about, and I don't think that was the case, say, a month ago. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Did you get that sense too? Because I just felt like all spring long, Utah was like, well, we'll see. But they weren't being talked about as preseason top 25 or one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league. But through the 2 days in Frisco and now reading a lot of the post-mortem stuff people are putting out, there's a lot more momentum. I'm not saying people are saying, although some of the odds makers are, what I'm saying is Utah wasn't in that top-tier group a month or a month and a half ago in a lot of people's minds. And I kind of get the sense now that they are among the top 4 or 5 teams. And if you talk to people down there, they said 7 or 8 could win it. But I kind of get the sense there's some momentum behind the Utes right now.
Yeah, and it's funny because last year it was no matter who you talk to, everyone's just like, well, yeah, you got to Utah. You got to factor in Utah because
it was Utah last year definitively, and then is it K-State or is it Oklahoma State or is it maybe it's Arizona? Those were kind of the schools, but everybody most everybody had Utah as one of the two teams that would be playing in the Big 12 championship game. And the reason they weren't was they had deficient quarterback play. If they have above average, they're probably in the Big 12 championship game. If they have average, they're probably competing to play in the Big 12 championship game. They had neither, so they weren't. So I think they got kind of forgotten a little bit, Sean. But then I think being down there and all the media being assembled, they're like, oh, wait a minute. Kyle Whittingham's got a pretty good track record. And look at when he has a healthy quarterback over the last decade, here's what they've done. And I think people then kind of got the whole Devin Dampier thing and the offensive line thing, and, they've got some good – so, I think – I don't know if people just kind of put it aside, forgot, but I think they got a refresher, and now Utah's back in that on the short list. I'm not saying they're at the top of it, but I think they're in that group that people are like, okay, they're going to be one of these teams.
To your point, to drive home Bill's point, I pulled up a couple sports books just to see what the odds are right now. If you're so inclined for entertainment purposes only, BetMGM has Kansas State, Arizona State, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Utah as eventual Big 12 championship winner, all at plus 600. So a group of 5 that does include Utah, and then from there it jumps to plus 1,200 for Kansas and for TCU, Iowa State beyond that, BYU's at plus 2,000. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's what BetMGM says. FanDuel, which is our partner for the PFL stuff, so I should probably give them extra love. But FanDuel has Utah alone at top odds at plus 550, and then it goes Kansas State, Arizona State at plus 600, Baylor, Texas Tech at 650. So the same 5 in that group, but at least one sportsbook says, no, this is Utah's conference. And again, it's to drive home the point that you just made, that there is a group, and Utah's either in it or at the top of it for some people.
Yeah, that's and again, a month ago, though I felt like they would be in that mix, a lot of people didn't. But I think now rosters are set. That's the thing we know now. Rosters are pretty much set, and people are now doing their dives into the rosters and who's coming back and what's there. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, there's a lot of names here, and Kyle Whittingham's back, and they've got, So I just – like I said, whether it's FanDuel, whether it's BetMGM, those guys are usually pretty well informed. But even our media friends, some of the national media folks, like a Brett McMurphy or an Andy Staples, or I saw Bud Elliott from on 24/7. These folks have Utah either representing the conference in the playoff or on that short list to compete for the conference championship game. And if you're competing for the conference championship game, that means you've got a pretty darn good chance to be in the playoff.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. This conversation brought to you by Handy and Handy, big firm experience, small firm attention. The optimism around Devin Dampier. I know you've watched his tape from New Mexico, and the question you have to ask is, well, does that translate at a higher level of college football? To me, Bill, that's an absolute yes, especially because the talent around him is going to be better. And yeah, defenses will be too. But what is the measured, non-crimson tinted view on this? Should we expect some growing pains from Devin?
Well, I don't know if it's growing pains. I think there's an adjustment to live football with your guys. But if you look at what he did last year, obviously Mountain West competition is not Big 12 or Power 4, but he was pretty impactful, and the athleticism is what pops. He wasn't some sort of a system guy. He played within a good system for him with Jason Beck, but if you watch Devin Dampier highlights, it's a lot of Devin Dampier. But look what he did against the 2 Power 4 teams he played last year, when they played Auburn and when they played Arizona, who's now a conference co-member for him. His numbers were terrific, and he ran around and made guys that are SEC and Big 12 athletes look silly at times. And I watched him run around in spring football. Now, again, he's not live in spring football, but Utah's defense is pretty good and pretty athletic. and they were having trouble keeping up and catching him at times. So I'm not saying he's going to come out of the gate putting up, unworldly numbers, but I don't know if there's necessarily a learning curve to the competition. UCLA in the opener is going to be a good matchup because UCLA is a good team, good athletes, middle of the pack, Big Ten, but that's still a good team. Cal Poly is not a great matchup. He played against the Wyomings last year, so I think it's a good. I think he's going to assimilate himself well. And the one thing I would say that I feel pretty good about is that the interception numbers will probably come down this year, because I don't think he's going to feel like he has to be Superman back there, because he's got a high caliber offensive line, really good running backs, which he had last year in New Mexico too. And probably, even though we don't know what these guys are, what the hierarchy is yet, Sean, I think his wide receiving core is going to be a little bit of a level up from what he had at New Mexico too. So I'm expecting a good season. Is he going to be the player of the year in the conference? I don't know that. But I don't think Utah needs him to be the player of the year in the conference for them to have a really good season.
On the defensive side of the ball, who are you most excited about watching for this Utah team?
I picked Lander Barton to be the defensive player of the year in the conference. I did that, one, because I think he's got that kind of a skill set. I did that, two, because I've seen Lander Barton at his best and know what he can be. I think last year the folks in the Big 12 didn't get to see him at his best because he was still recovering from the injury that impacted him the second half of the final year of the Pac-12. So I think Lander Barton in the middle of that defense with his athleticism and his instinct has a really, really good chance to have a huge year. That being said, I am really looking forward to seeing Smith Snowden play that slot corner position. I've said that, I don't know if I've said it with you. He reminds me a lot of Trent McDuffie, who now plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, who played at the University of Washington. I remember watching Trent McDuffie at Washington saying, that guy is really good. And then the way he's utilized in Kansas City with Steve Spagnuolo, they play him inside, they play him outside, they blitz him a ton because of his speed and quickness. I think Morgan Scalley probably uses him a lot of the same way. So I think Barton has a chance to be player of the year, but I'm really anxious to see Smith Snowden.
I think Smith Snowden will be okay with that comparison. McDuffie ended up first-round draft pick, 21 overall to the Chiefs, and things have gone pretty well for him there, as Bill just mentioned. Bill, what else you got going on with Handy and Handy?
Well, I'm just happy that Preston and Garrett were kind enough to sponsor this segment I do with you every week, and the one I do with Spence every week as well. Personal injury attorneys, 35 plus years of experience combined with Garrett and Preston. Great guys too. They used to come on my show all the time. They're on Spence's show. They're good guys. They're Salt Lake guys. And, hopefully you don't ever need to call them because they're personal injury attorneys. But if you're hurt in an accident, you're hurt on the job, whatever it might happen to be, and you want good, experienced attorneys that can get the job done for you and do it in a very good and timely manner, that's what they do for you at Handy and Handy. So give them a call. And two big Utah fans as well in Preston and Garrett. So give them a call. Find them online at handylawutah.com. It's Handy and Handy.
Great catching up with you twice this week, Bill. Thanks for your time.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Sean.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes on the Sean O'Connell Show. Quick one here. We'll come back with a very brief hot lunch. Fireworks, man. There's a reason we gave you that PSA to be careful. Not everybody listens, including a future or current NFL star. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show, a little hot lunch. We'll make this one quick. James, we had a full PSA heading into the 4th of July weekend that people needed to be careful about their fireworks usage. And unfortunately, new Chargers running back Najee Harris was not listening.
Yeah, come on, man. The ESPN 700 app gets to Southern California, so I don't know why you're not listening, Najee Harris. That was a ridiculous story, by the way. I'll let you tell it.
Well, Najee Harris has an eye injury because of a fireworks accident. Now, he's never missed a game because of injury in his pro football career. He's not going to because of this. But
yeah, they're calling it superficial.
But a superficial eye injury. He is expected to be fully ready. And there was a fireworks mishap at a 4th of July event where thankfully Najee was not the one who in Antioch, California, which is part of the Bay Area, he didn't get hurt as badly as one of the sounds like the guy who had the firework in his hand.
Yeah.
Full JPP situation.
Yeah. He blew his fingers off.
That is
amazing.
What are we doing?
So before the show, I was like, did you see this story? Like, oh, yeah, we got to talk about that in the hot lunch. And I said, how do you get an eye injury from the firework? And you astutely pointed out, they're explosive, James. They're explosives, James. But where I was coming from is, how are you dumb enough to get a firework close enough to your face that it's going to hurt your eye?
So there's a couple ways that this could have happened, right? Where everybody's being an idiot, but also there's potentially a situation where whoever ended up losing the fingers is like the lone idiot in the bunch.
Yeah.
Who's like holding some mortar and is like, I'm just going to light this and throw it.
Well, he's standing right next to Najee.
While you're walking over to the cooler to grab a beverage, or you're standing there at the grill, and just like, hey, what are you doing, man? Don't light that thing. Boom. Now you've got an eye. And thankfully, it's nothing serious, but
probably got some of those little rocks in his eye or something.
You're going to have a situation.
Gosh.
You're going to have a situation where teams, when you go into professional athlete contracts, they will, in the fine print, say, like, can't ride a horse, no snowboarding, no dirt bikes. They're going to have to add no fireworks if athletes keep being affected by what is a fun national pastime in a negative way.
Just ridiculous. Now, thankfully, people in Utah were listening to our PSA because, as we have pointed out, at least we haven't seen any reports of any firework-related fires. So thank you all for listening.
Or finger casualties.
Although there probably were some of those similar mishaps. Maybe not finger casualties, but they just didn't happen to very high-profile people, so we didn't hear about it. But hopefully that was at a minimum too. But thank you all for listening. Now, Najee Harris, download the ESPN 700 app already. We can help you save your eye, all right? We can help your friend save his fingers if you just download the app.
SportsCenter is going to be live at Dumke Family Stadium for Athletes Unlimited Softball League next Thursday, July 17th.
Yeah, how cool is that, OC? SportsCenter, they're doing, it's called 50 States in 50 Days. They're gonna help promote that softball tournament.
7 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the Sean O'Connell Show, 11 to 2. Join us for a chance to be on SportsCenter, giving away official ESPN T-shirts, tickets to Athletes Unlimited softball games up at University of Utah at the Dumke Family Stadium. So a little Thursday plan for you next week.
Yeah, and so the whole network's going to be there. So our sibling station, as we like to call it, 103.9, 98.3 ESPN, The Fan, Bryce and Bianucci are going to start things off at 7 a.m. Bryce Larson, Jordan Bianucci. And it's going to go all the way through the drive with Spence Checketts and Cougar Sports on both stations will be live up there. So come hang out with us. There will be a SportsCenter anchor on site. Again, they usually at these traveling things like to get a good group of fans behind them, so you have a chance to get on SportsCenter.
Before we take a break, a reminder to all you people out there that we have a new presenting title sponsor here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Big Willie's Sports Bar, 1717 South Main Street in Salt Lake City. You guys know I don't partake with alcohol, right? I'm not a drinker. However, Big Willie's is still the right kind of place to go, even for me, because the menu, the kitchen is fantastic, and you're not going to find a better selection of televisions, pool tables, dartboards. It's just a great place to be when you're looking to take in a game, when you're just looking for some good eats, some good adult beverages, some good non-adult beverages. Big Willie's at 1717 Main Street. They've got you taken care of either way. Drop by, mention the Sean O'Connell Show, tell them you heard about the partnership, and they'll hook you up extra. They'll give you an extra special service. Apps, mains, even desserts at Big Willie's. They really take care of all of our people. And anytime there's a sporting event that you're like, oh, I don't have the broadcast package that makes that easy to watch. Oh, I don't want to pay the pay-per-view price for this big UFC fight or this big boxing event. There's not going to be enough people at my house to justify that. Just head to 1717 South Main Street. Go to Big Willie's. That's the right place for all your biggest sporting events. Get ready for all your Utah football games. Ready for all your Utah Mammoth hockey games as well. And we're going to be talking about that next. We go between the pipes to start hour number 2 on a Friday with Adrian Denny, who joins us in studio. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Sean O'Connell Show on a Friday. We are 80 minutes away from airing of grievances, where you could just unburden yourself, whatever's been bothering you, whatever's stuck in your craw. We'll get to it at about 1:30 on the show today. Time to go between the pipes with Adrian Denny. Segment brought to you by Angora and Aladdin Industries. And we talk a little Utah Mammoth hockey. Adrian has joined me here in studio, so if you're watching on the YouTube stream, say hello to Adrian. Adrian, hello.
What's up, OC? How's it going, man?
It's good to see you in person. It's been a while.
Great to see you. Yeah, it has been a while since we were in person.
You got the cool Mammoth polo on.
I've got the official Mammoth polo. It's the only one I've seen so far.
All right.
I
you got
like
a one-off Mammoth polo?
I've got a small and a medium in this, and today I'm wearing the small.
All right.
So
I like it.
let me know, folks, on YouTube. Stay with the small.
Little form-fitting here for
Yeah.
Adrian Denny. I like it. All right. We were just talking during the break. You want to do start, bench, cut?
Yeah.
Okay. HBO drama shows. Start one, bench one, cut one. Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones.
Start Sopranos, bench The Wire, cut Game of Thrones.
You're cutting Game of Thrones.
Cutting it. I didn't give it a whole lot of chances.
Okay.
Watched it in a hotel room one night. I was really excited because it was a show everybody
right.
was watching.
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't my thing.
Are you generally not like a sci-fi
Not
fantasy
at all.
guy?
Not
Okay.
at all. I like to understand how something is happening,
Okay.
see the logic. They're realistic.
So like magic and
Yeah,
dragons just don't really fly for you?
I just can't do it. My brain can't process it.
I
Number one, because I'm straight sports.
okay.
Like, I watch sports, and when
Yes.
sports aren't on, I don't really know what to do. And so guys like you and Bill Riley that have seen all of these shows cover to cover, I'm like, gosh, that's time management.
Here's the
That's
thing.
good.
It ends there for me, unfortunately, because like Breaking Bad, and I was talking about this earlier, Lost and Prison Break. I mean, there's just like a litany of shows. Walking Dead. People are like in the 15th season of those things. I haven't been able to do it. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
And now I got 3 little kids. So any show that has come out in the last 6 years, I'm lost. I have no idea what's happening.
And they all sound great, and I'd love to get into them. And then you've got Royals Cardinals playing on a Tuesday night, and I'm like, there's live sports. I can't miss out.
See, regular season baseball, I have a hard time, but unless it's my Twins.
You've heard Colin Cowherd talk about pruning stuff from your sports tree as you get older. That's one of my favorite rants that he's got. One of my favorite philosophies. And baseball's teetering, man. Baseball,
almost there.
Yeah, baseball used to be
Well,
the summer thing. Baseball's teetering, though. I totally get it, but I'm still like, oh, there's sports. I gotta watch sports. It's in the moment. It's
Fair.
live. I don't want to miss out.
fair. All right, let's talk a little Utah Mammoth hockey. Jack McBain, since the last time we talked, Jack McBain with a 5-year contract extension, and they avoid arbitration. Now, arbitration is one of those things where in baseball, when they bring up arbitration, I have a very rudimentary understanding of what they're even talking about. In hockey, even less. How crucial was it for both sides to avoid the arbitration phase here?
I think it was just needing an extra day or so to get the deal done. Ryan Smith said at the announcement of the name press conference in early May, Jack McBain was there with his roommate Dylan Gunther, and he made mention and he made reference that there's Jack McBain sitting in the front row, and we're going to get him signed.
Nice.
And as you heard throughout the course of May, June, and going into early July, it was always the feeling of, yeah, this is going to happen, and it's really, really close. I think they just needed an extra day to hammer out the deal. And as far as, official technicalities, let's opt into arbitration with the intention of we're getting this deal done. And 5 years for McBain, that's exciting. And when Ryan Smith said that at the presser, you're like, okay, this is good. This is going to get done because he's a big part of the core.
Okay, we've had this conversation before, I think, and there's an identity that teams, basically every team in football, wants to be big, physical, nasty, punch you in the mouth. You get the same sense for the most part from hockey coaches when you talk to them. We want to be a physical team. We want to punish you on the forecheck. And you need the bodies to make that possible. In today's NHL, I mean, we see some teams that are built exactly for that. The identity, to me, there was a slight amount of dissonance with this Utah Mammoth team last year because Bill Armstrong talks about that desire. Coach Bear talks about that desire. The bodies on the ice, there's just like not with every line, there's not the size necessary to do that for the Mammoth. But McBain is one of those guys that like he helps establish that identity.
Yeah, he's 6'4". He plays on a line with Lawson Krause, who's about the same size. We call them the non-negotiable line because Lawson Krause has a list of non-negotiables that if you're going to play on the line with him, you got to check that box. It's non-negotiable. And to be simple, it's you go down and you hit guys, you lay down hits, you're physical, and you find a way to score goals. So that's pretty simple. Pretty simple. But
non-negotiable for everyone. It should be.
Yeah, it's and there's a little more to it, but that's basically to keep it simple. Big guys that play heavy, that play hard. And OC, the thing about this Utah roster right now, and you look at it with free agency, they added Brandon Tanev, the free agent signing last week. And one of the things they wanted to hit in free agency was, as you said, size and physicality, because they've got the skill. They've got Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther. They want to add to it. And Bill talks about size and physicality. You look at the pipeline, you look at the draft picks, the last 4 or 5 years, they're all guys of size, 6'2", 6'3", whether being a forward or defenseman. But this team right now, as it's made, a little smaller. So it's one thing they wanted to address. Number one, get Jack McBain re-signed, 5-year deal, and Brandon Tanev, who will be somewhere out there, non-negotiating with Jack McBain and Lawson Krause.
You look at some of the publications, and we do this with drafts, we do this with free agency, we do this with trades. We grade them, and there's a lot of positivity in the hockey world around the off-season moves that this Mammoth team has made. Are you in agreement with the A-, A+ grade? There's a bit of a range.
Yeah, last weekend the Athletic came out with their report card for free agency, and I thought, okay, where's this going to go? Because you heard, Utah's going to go out, they're going to be swinging, Utah's going to be big game hunting, and I don't know if this was my job or not, but in May and June, I felt, okay, this is out there, but I don't necessarily see that coming. I see what Utah did last Tuesday, the first day of free agency, getting a guy like Tanev with the size and the physicality, and getting a backup goalie, because with Connor Ingram in the player assistance program, Bill Armstrong said, yeah, we've heard Connor's doing well, but we want to add just to have another piece. And they get Vitek Vanacek, and they get Nate Schmidt, who just won the Stanley Cup. And, there wasn't a big free agent crop out there. So teams are going to start trading is what is probably going to happen. But Utah got ahead of it. They got J.J. Peterka from Buffalo, a pure goal scorer, offensive guy. Again, not necessarily a guy size, but Bill said last week, I'm not going to say he's going to score 50 goals, but he just might.
Well, that's so. When you talk about Peterka, right, there's all this discussion of like the ceiling and what he could bring, and that's very exciting. You also have to factor in, well, if this doesn't go perfectly, if there's a floor to that acquisition, I think the floor is even high on J.J. Peterka.
27 goals last year, 28 the year before. Love the trade. Like, I watched every goal he scored last year the night we made the trade. I've watched that probably every other day since, because the guy's shot it's a laser beam. It's like, wait, when did he shoot that puck? And so you look at that, and the guys Utah added, I thought it'd be simple. I thought it'd be a physical guy, a backup goalie, maybe another defenseman like they got with Nate Schmidt fresh off the Stanley Cup, but I didn't know how the experts would take it. So I'm like, Tuesday, there's not another team that did better than Utah in free agency in filling needs that they wanted to fill to build around their core guys. But how's the national media going to take this that was putting out there that Utah was interested in Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett, and they both re-signed with Florida, and Mitch Marner got traded to Vegas in the sign-and-trade, and Bill Armstrong was tempering expectations all along. Like, wait, you're hearing this, but we don't want to take a big swing, and then all of a sudden we don't have the cap space to sign these guys, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, when we want to fill those spots. And so I'm reading the Athletic article, and I'm like, oh, they gave Utah an A-. Maybe that's the minus. Yeah, maybe that's these national media folks seeing what Utah did and not being like, oh, they didn't take that big swing that we created the narrative they were going to do. Florida got an A+. Okay, they re-signed their 3 guys from the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
run.
How could they not get an A+?
So that expected, right? Vegas got Mitch Marner, A+. Carolina, A-. They signed Nikolai Ehlers from Winnipeg, made a big trade with the Rangers. And then you've got Utah, A-. So those 4 teams got A grades in free agency: Florida, Vegas, Carolina, Utah. And I'm like, okay, everybody realizes what Utah did, not that they didn't take that big swing that would have got articles, lots of clicks. And Bill always says, we want to win in the winter. Some teams win in the summer, but we want to win in the winter. So I think they did what they needed to do to win in the winter, and I think it was acknowledged by the national media, which I was curious to see how they take that.
Well, Bill, we want to win in the spring too. And
yes.
That's the thing that the timeline of expectation, right? You're dealing with, in a lot of ways, a new fan base, an overly enthusiastic fan base in some cases. And yes, Bill Armstrong, what a strange job for a GM to have. Be like, let's pump the brakes, guys. Most of the time it's this like coach speak, it's rah-rah. It's like, no, like we feel really good about everything. He takes the not opposite stance, but the more measured approach of saying, like, we have a plan. The plan is not going to take a month to execute. And it's such a funny thing to see him multiple times. I mean, when they brought the team, he was just like, whoa, playoffs, I don't know, guys.
Yeah.
But I'm ready to start driving that train now.
Yeah, playoffs are the expectation for this year. This is year number 5 of the build that started in Arizona before the team relocated. Going into year 4, okay, we're going to be in the hunt for the playoffs. That is, year 4 of the process. We're going to be in the hunt. They were in the hunt for the final week or 2. Barely missed. St. Louis got hot, won 12 in a row. This year, nobody is turning away from the fact playoffs are the expectation. The next temperament from Bill is teams don't win the Stanley Cup first year they make the playoffs. You got to go in. You got to get beat up. You look at Colorado before they won the Cup in 2022. They had some tough exits in the playoffs. Tampa Bay won the President's Cup trophy, best record in the NHL in 2019, got swept by the 8th seed Columbus. Then, coming out of COVID, they win 2 Stanley Cups in a row. So as they look at all of their models and where they are right now, like, okay, this year you make the playoffs, it's not necessarily the year you win. You got to go. You got to get beat up. Got to learn your lessons. Got to feel the pain. And then come back the next one.
With that in mind, they're continuing to build through the draft with these like 17 and 18-year-old guys. I know that it's closer. The NHL draft is closer to the NBA draft than it is the NFL draft, where guys like you're going to draft a guy and expect him to be a starter for you if he's a first-round pick the following year. But how realistic is it that these recent draft picks are going to be contributors very soon for the Utah Mammoth?
So Caleb Denoye taken fourth overall. He's 18. He's 17 this season when he's leading his junior team to a league championship and to the Memorial Cup, which is a a meeting of the 3 Canadian Junior League championships and the host team. So they got to the Memorial Cup, lost to the eventual champion London, but Denoye, as a 17-year-old, was leading that team along, which really impressed Bill Armstrong, and he drafted him, and Bill's kind of taking him. Well, we'll see what he does. Never gonna take a kid's expectation and say, no, you can't do that. And Denoye said, I want to make the team. I want to play in the NHL this year, but he's been very careful to say, but if I don't, I want to follow the team's timeline and development process. Colbo Dwayne, drafted in the first round last year. We saw him at first development camp last year, and he's really gotten a lot bigger, more of an NHL body in the last year. Had a great year in juniors. He said at development camp this year last week, I want to play in the NHL this year. But if it doesn't happen, I want to follow what the organization has planned for me. So you got those two guys, probably the top two drafted in the last 2 years that want to do it, and Bill's not going to stop him. He's not going to say he's not going to send him back to juniors, but he's not going to have him in camp being like, like
you've got no shot to make this team.
Have a fun practice out there and then come see me. and then you look at the two Russians drafted in 2023, Dmitry Simashev and Daniil Boot, two really big guys. Simashev 6'5", Boot 6'6". Simashev a D-man, Boot a forward. They're on 3-year entry-level contracts, just signed. Those guys will be in training camp with a chance to make the team. But OC, the one I'm really excited about. I'm excited about all of them. But what we need right now is what Daniil Boot does. He's 6'6". He's big, gets to the net. Bill Armstrong saying he could be another Tage Thompson, which is another player from the Buffalo Sabres, since that's kind of been our I guess, radar point in the NHL since just took J.J. Peterka from there, and the fans probably didn't know a whole lot about J.J. Peterka, so I'll tell them about Tage Thompson. Bill compared Daniil Boot to Tage Thompson, who's a guy in the last 4 years in the NHL has had 2 40-goal seasons, has scored almost 30, and has scored over 30. So if he's drawing that comparison by name, I think that gives the potential that you've got there with Daniil Boot, big kid, and something the team needs right now. Size that can be a little prickly in front of the net.
Adrian Denny, we're going between the pipes. This is brought to you by Angora and Aladdin Industries. Before I cut you loose, as we only have a couple more minutes here, something that has really confounded me, right? Everything I've heard from NHL people, visiting play-by-play guys, the rare opportunities we have to talk with other teams, things like that. The reputation for what is happening in Salt Lake City in a very short time span, right? Everyone is like, oh, man, first-class organization. What they're doing here with the Utah Hockey Club, now the Utah Mammoth, everybody loves it. Obviously, the players in the organization are gushing about how supportive ownership is and all this stuff. And it's the same ownership group that is running a Utah Jazz organization that is right now getting the opposite reviews. What have they done in the Utah Mammoth building that makes them so popular with their own players, so popular around the league, that the same ownership groups can't seem to figure out in the NBA?
It started the day that Ryan and Ashley Smith got handed the keys to the team in the NHL. They met with the group in Arizona, and they said, trust us, and what do you need, and what can we do? And the NHL saw that, and then what they're doing with Delta Center and the practice facility in Southtown starts with ownership. You can have a great city, great arena, but we saw it in Florida. Tampa Bay and the Panthers weren't always what they are right now. Now you look at their ownership group. So starts with ownership, and the SCG and the NHL just got off to a really good start, which with 6 months, less than 6 months to get everything on the ice is really incredible. But they get stuff done, man. And Utah shows up. I think everybody was just really impressed going into that building last year and seeing it and how it goes nuts. And for me, it's like being at a rock show more so than a sporting event.
Could you foresee a world in which Salt Lake City becomes a free agent destination? Because, it's not going to happen in basketball.
Yep.
And again, you don't have to look at hockey through that lens, but it does matter from a sports talk perspective, at least, that like you're never going to get the Sam Bennett of the NBA to come to Utah. Maybe he never thought about it because of what's going on in Florida, and he probably didn't give it serious thought because of what's going on in Florida. But as a fan, you could at least be like, oh, yeah, well, he's calling his buddies, and they're like, yeah, we love it here. And, the community support, all that stuff you just referenced, you got to win more, I think. But could this be a place where top quality prospects and, more importantly, veteran free agents that can really help you win playoff hockey and Stanley Cups see Salt Lake City, see the Utah Mammoth franchise as a destination? I want to be part of that. I want to go live there. Everything I've heard is fantastic. Let me add my name to that squad.
The one thing you just said, what takes it to the next step is winning.
Sure.
That's why everybody wants to go to Florida. They've won back-to-back cups. Vegas, great place.
People talk about Florida has this great advantage because of the tax rules.
Yeah.
How many athletes would rather pay a few extra dollars in taxes and win a Stanley Cup? That's what it's about. It's the fact that they win.
Yeah. Nobody wanted to go there, and nobody complained about the state tax situation in Florida 5, 10, 15 years ago when Florida Panthers were, not making the playoffs, and you look at their arena and it's empty, and Tampa Bay maybe 5 years ahead of Florida and getting things started 15 years ago. Nobody was going there in 08, 09, 2010. Nobody wanted to sign there. They didn't, really have the money, but the ownership that both those teams had, and Vegas, same thing. And they've all won cups. And so the winning is the biggest thing. And then how are they going to be treated, supported when they go there? And what's it like to live there? And for Salt Lake, this is a pretty good place to live, as we all know. And, for those of us looking at Salt Lake in the last 5, 10 years, I think of what in the world has happened from Point of the Mountain to south of Payson.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. It's all new. Yeah. There's tech companies. They're coming here. There's high-end apartments and condos. Like this place is a place that people want to be, and we see it in home prices right now too.
Sixth highest
supply and demand, huh?
Sixth highest home price in the country right now.
And Utah got off to a great start in the NHL, and it's top 4 in free agent grades. It's in a good spot in all aspects, and coming here with the team in place that was in a good spot to compete for a playoff spot was just another big bonus.
Adrian, let's do this more often. Let's have you in studio as often as we can.
Anytime. I love it.
Catching up with you face to face.
Man. Thank you so much for having me.
That's Between the Pipes. Adrian Denny, our Utah Mammoth insider. He's going to be sticking with us up through the start of the season, throughout the season, and hopefully we're seeing this team win in the winter and in the spring and even into the summer sooner than later. Our conversation with Adrian Denny brought to you by Angora and Aladdin Industries. Also, reminder before we take a break, Live Night Events presenting our 2025 Granary Live Concert Series. Nightingale College and Murdoch Hyundai bring that to you. Outdoor concerts right in the heart of the new Granary District, which is blowing up. If you haven't gotten over there to check out the new restaurants and just like the street art, it's a different thing. To the point Adrian just made, what has been going on in the last 5-10 years in Salt Lake City and in Utah at large? Growth, baby. You can find details for the Granary Live Concert Series at ESPN700sports.com. All right, we'll talk about Big 12 Media Days and your Utes with Josh Furlong next on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Adam Sandler coming to the Delta Center October 26th. Tickets are on sale right now. Listen to The Drive with Spence Checketts, and he'll have a pair of tickets for you to win. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Happy to announce the return of Adam Sandler to the Delta Center. Josh Furlong joins us, big Adam Sandler fan. We've never had that conversation, but I'm just guessing. KSL.com, Utah Insider. We saw him down at Big 12 Media Days. Josh, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Am I correct that you love Adam Sandler?
Oh, for sure. How can you not love the Sandman?
Okay, I'm glad I got that one right. Before we get into any real conversations, we're going to play Start, Bench, Cut. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, start one, bench one, cut one. Utah safeties from the non-Power 5 era. So effectively, WAC, Mountain West, Skyline Conference, if you wanted to go back that far, although I didn't. Your options are Eric Weddle, Morgan Scalley, and Rojo. Start one, bench one, cut one.
Oh, that's a tough one. You're going to have to start Eric Weddle, bench Scally, and Rojo cut. That sucks, but yeah, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
I think that's a fair answer.
Weddle, two-time Player of the Year, consensus All-American. Morgan Scalley, his senior year, co-Player of the Year, co-Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. Rojo was an All-Conference player, but never quite at that level. So I think that might be the most logical way to go. But yeah, tough always to cut, which is why the game is fun to play. We were doing some pop culture start, bench, cut. Did you watch the HBO drama series? Have you seen Game of Thrones? Have you seen Sopranos? Have you seen The Wire?
I have not. See, growing up, man, I didn't have any of that stuff. So all those things I'm starting to get into now. So it's on my list. I just haven't gotten into them yet. But I've watched a bunch of the other stuff, and we'll get there.
All right, we'll spare you that one then. James was in the same boat, and yeah, I had to binge watch all of those. I got to the party late myself, but anyway. All right, let's talk what we're supposed to talk about. Let's talk Utah football. Let's talk Big 12 Media Days. I came away with Big 12 Media Days somewhat shocked that we got like no real consensus. I know there's going to be parity in this league, but talking with different coaches, media members, even players, it doesn't feel like anyone has any idea what's going to happen in the Big 12. There's like 6, 7, 8 teams that could compete for a championship. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it's tough right now because the team that won the conference last year was not even supposed to be in the conversation, right? And so I think there's still that conversation kind of looming in people's minds about what it could be. Obviously, there's some top teams that bring back a ton of talent: Kansas State, Arizona State, Baylor. Those are probably your top 3 favorites, I would say. But then you have a Texas Tech who, they've spent their way to the top of the leaderboard, but can it matter when it comes down to it? Then you have Utah. Are they going to be contender? There's a lot of different teams in the mix. And I think, it's good for the conference in the sense that it allows them to be able to have so many different teams vying for those playoff spots, vying for a Big 12 championship bid. But at the same time, I think it hurts them because going into this, there isn't this talk about one specific team, right? Deion Sanders is going to get a lot of love because he's Deion Sanders, but it wasn't the same as even in years past where there was people thinking there was a legit shot that he was going to be able to get there. And so I think you got that from Brett Yormark as well in his conversations with the media, where he believes that parity was the right choice at the very beginning, but he knows that they need to have teams that can be elite. He needs teams that can kind of consistently get there each and every year for the Big 12 to really take that next step. So it's fun right now, right? Like, I think it's fun going into this season saying we legitimately have no idea who's going to win the conference. But I think because of that, the Big 12 is always going to kind of be looked at as like, oh, it's just the Big 12. They do their own thing over there. Meanwhile, we're going to focus on the Big 10 and the SEC. That's always going to be a problem. But I think when you don't have a top-tier team or a top-tier athlete that you can draw to, you just kind of get forgotten. So I think that's kind of the nature of where it's at. And so we'll see what happens. Maybe one of those teams separate this year and you start seeing that. But this isn't Oklahoma, Texas anymore, right?
The question mark around Utah football, even here in our own market, you could tune in and you'll hear certain radio personalities that are not convinced that a turnaround is imminent. you listen to the Home of the Utes and my show, and you're probably hearing me say, yeah, just stay healthy and everything's going to be fine. Is it that simple? Am I being overly reductive in attaching too much of Utah's ability to be in the conversation for a championship again to health? Am I overestimating what they added in the offseason? Because to me, it really boils down to that. Last year, if you'd been healthy, you would have been competing for a championship. I still think the same is true this year, even though you've had a ton of roster turnover. What do you think?
No, I completely agree with you. I'm on that aisle where I think that as long as Utah's healthy, I think they're going to be fine. Marginal success is going to be a massive improvement for this team, and that's not to take away from any of these teams in the Big 12. I just think Utah knows what they need to do. They just haven't been able to have the bodies to do it. The fact that even with like a terrible offense last year, they were in several games by one score late into the game kind of shows where they're at, right? They're always going to have a defense that's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with any team that they face, especially in the Big 12. But you need something, something even average to be able to do well. I mean, if I remember right, looking at the averages from last year, had Utah just scored 21 points, they would have probably gone 8-4. And so I think it's not a huge measuring stick to be able to say, oh, if they could only score 21 points. I mean, like that's a pretty low basis. Everybody wants to see 30 points is kind of where they're at. So even if Devin things can be crazy, and Devin Dampier could absolutely just not have what it takes to be able to compete. But I think where they've built their roster, the way that they've kind of designed it, the play calling that they have, anything better than what was last year, as long as they move the ball, is going to be better, and I think they're going to be okay. So I'm right there with you. I don't think it's going to take much. Does that mean that they're going to win the conference? No, but I think it's not going to take much for them to at least get to a winning season and be competitive for a title.
One thing we learned the hard way these last two seasons is how depth is so important in college football. And if you don't have it, especially at the right positions, you're done for. Now, depth at the quarterback position is something that very few teams have. I don't think it's even reasonable to ask that your team in a transfer and NIL era has depth at the quarterback spot, not real starter quality depth at least. But position groups that are typically very deep at Utah, like defensive line, especially interior defensive tackle, maybe are a little thinner this year. Should we be worried about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always worry, right? I mean, Kyle Whittingham joked that maybe they should have had 7 quarterbacks on the roster last year, right? Like, they got to their 5th quarterback. So, I mean, there's always a concern. I think Utah's done a better job over the years of being able to find ways to absorb that a little bit. But look, I mean, Utah was in the Rose Bowl, and they had to put Mekhi Bernard on the secondary side to be able to compete with Jackson Smith-Njigba, which didn't go well. But, I mean, like, there's always going to be a concern, and I don't know that you can fully give yourself the best situations you need. Now, with that said, I think there are some positions, maybe it's defensive tackle, where Utah could be a little bit thinner, but it's not a matter of talent. It's more a matter of just experience. And so I don't think that there's one position group here where you say, okay, there's no way Utah is going to work out if they don't have their top-line guys go. It's just more of an experience situation. So you're going to take some lumps. You're going to take take a step back in terms of what you were able to do, like most teams do. But I don't know that they've gone about it the wrong way in terms of just loading up on one section and forgetting another. I think they've been pretty intentional about what they needed to do in the transfer portal. They hit everything. Defensive tackle was always going to be a position group that they were going to have not a ton of experience, and they went through the portal and got a lot of guys that were able to be added to it. So, I don't want to call that a cop-out answer, but I think Utah really has done a good job of developing talent despite a lot of guys going into the portal and moving forward with their careers.
Josh Furlong, our guest, talking some Utah football and Big 12 football here for the next few minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. BYU, a rivalry game. Look, it's always close. They're always a threat. Last year, Utah was not supposed to push BYU as far as they did because of how that season played out, and we know exactly what happened in that game. But from like an overall season standpoint, what do you think is going to happen with BYU? How much of a threat is BYU as a conference championship contender? Because that's where Utah wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're still a threat. I think the benefit for them is their schedule isn't that difficult. So, especially early on, where you can easily go off and win 6 games and before you really hit the meat of your conference schedule. So, as long as they can kind of do what Utah does, right, where they've loaded up on defense, Jay Hill is going to be this phenomenal defensive coordinator again. If they can continue to do that, they can overcome maybe some of the problems and the struggles that they may have with their quarterback. The thing with them is, they've lost some good key positions, and that's going to be some questions there, as most teams have. But the QB position is going to loom the largest, right? Like, who is going to be there? And so I don't know that there's anybody that's predicting them to necessarily be in the conference championship game this year. Had Retzlaff been there, I think people would have had a different tune. But I think they've still got enough talent, and they've got enough um, holdover from the year before where it's absolutely attainable, right? Utah could be the better team on paper, but this BYU team could still do what they need to. I'm not saying that that's the case right now. BYU obviously has the resume and the recent history to kind of show that they have been the better team in terms of being able to win the game, but you just never know with this game. And so I think there's more questions going into the season than there are for Utah in terms of how these two teams stack up. But I wouldn't at all be surprised if BYU is in the mix. They've got great chemistry. Jay Hill is not one that you need to doubt because he's going to continue to get that defense going, and that's going to keep them in games. So really fascinating to see what happens with them. I think the QB situation, if it can get sorted out, that's going to be the real decider, the X factor, so to speak. And if they get that figured out early, watch out for BYU.
I almost don't want to ask this next one because it's not a conversation I like stirring up. We've done it too much over the last 3 or 4 years, but I think it's Kyle Whittingham's last year. Does that alter how the season plays out?
No, I don't think the team really cares if it's his last year. I mean, I think last year they cared a little bit more. It felt like there was this supremacy feeling where you're getting Cam Rising back, you're getting Kyle Whittingham, who knows how to get to a conference championship. And so you've got this veteran team that they all kind of just had this belief that, hey, we're going to go roll. We're going to go win the Big 12. We've done this in the Pac-12. We're going to send Kyle out on a high note, and everything's going to be good. I don't get that sense this year. I get the sense that they obviously want to win, but it's different, right? They're playing for each other more than they are playing for individuals, if that makes sense. Like, I think a lot of people were putting a lot of stock into Cam Rising being the leader that was going to take them to the promised land. This year, there's still that belief in like Devin Dampier, but I think it's different where it's spread amongst the entire team and Kyle Whittingham included, right? Like I think they all just kind of have this general belief and vibe that things are going to be much better because it's built better. So, I do think that this is Kyle Whittingham's last ride, assuming that Utah can have a solid season. I just, there comes a point where you kind of can't have your fairy tale ending. And if it works out that way, that's great, but it's going to be a tough situation to try to plan for that. So I don't think that there's going to be a huge emphasis this year in leaning into that. There was a lot of that last year at Media Day where everybody's asking, is this your last year? Is this your last year? And it really felt like kind of the swan song type thing where we're going out. It's going to be Cam Rising's last year. It's going to be Kyle's last year. It's going to be Andy Ludwig's last year. And everything went sideways. So I think that's not going to be a focus this year. It's just going to be more, hey, we got to be better. If it just so happens that they're great and Kyle Whittingham retires, even better. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that there's going to be a huge emphasis there.
The expectations surrounding Devin Dampier are based on what we saw him do at New Mexico. And the 12-12, we've talked about that plenty. He's got to improve that. He knows he's got to improve that. His dual threat capabilities are very intriguing, but we've seen what happens when you run a quarterback too much. How much do you expect this the usage of Devin Dampier to be the same at Utah as it was at New Mexico? And I guess by extension, how much do you expect his production and his ability and the fact that he was the best athlete on the field so many times for that to remain the case now that he's at a Big 12 level instead of a Mountain West level?
Yeah, I mean, he gave a great answer to kind of this question to us at Media Days. He said at New Mexico, when they would go out to practice, he was able to do everything he needed to against their defense. And so he felt like their offense was good. The problem was their defense just wasn't that good. And so it kind of gave this masked feeling going into the season that everything was going to be great. Now, don't get me wrong, they still had a solid season and they were a great offense, and he was clearly the best talent on the field. But now he's learning that going up against a defense like Utah, it's going to be challenging. It's going to test you in the Big 12. I think for him to be able to have a defense like Utah absolutely prepares him for that. Now, with that, that doesn't mean that he's, because he's gone up against Utah in spring, or he'll do it a little bit in fall, that things are going to change. It just means that now he's experienced it at a different level where you can't just get by being the best athlete. You actually have to have a mixture of that talent and also being able to just have a good offense around you that you can rely on. So I think there will be some similarities to kind of answer your first question of just they're going to keep him this dynamic playmaker, right? There's no reason to kind of put him in a box. It was similar to Noah Fafita last year. This guy that's this dual threat quarterback that was phenomenal in the Pac-12. They decided to take the ball out of his hands and make him just a pocket passer. It didn't work. Arizona was terrible. I think you're going to see something similar with Utah where they're going to lean in on who he is. I don't think Kyle wants to run him on every down or make it something where he's the only focal point of the run game, but I think you're going to see some similarities where they're going to make him an active participant up there. But they have the athletes now where they can create option plays off of that. They can have little things where you have little things, meaning the big guys up front, where you have a much better offensive line that can protect and give you the freedom and flexibility to do so many more things. So, I don't know that it's a fair comparison to say it'll be similar to New Mexico, because I just think Dampier has better talent around him. That yes, he'll still be the star of the show, but he's got so many other guys around him that can kind of take the weight away from him so that he doesn't have to kind of lean all in on that. So it could be a great compliment, or, they're going to be relying on him a ton. We'll see. But I have to tend to believe that he's got a good complementary set of players that are going to help him be a little bit better in terms of production.
All right, last thing I promise, and you get to revise this answer the next time I talk to you or after we get to watch some availability at camp and things like that, but who is going to lead Utah in receiving yards in 2025?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Oh, man. That's a really good question, because I think there's some names there that, Tobias Merriweather is the guy that I think everybody's going to focus on just because of his body. He's the prototypical X-type receiver. Man, that's a tough one. I'm going to go out on a wild card here, and I'm going to actually say it's Nate Johnson. I think he's going to be this X factor that people aren't expecting, and he's going to we'll go, how about all-purpose yards? Can I go all-purpose yards, and we'll say Nate Johnson?
No, well, okay. All-purpose yards is going to be Devin Dampier.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. But if we're talking anybody outside of Dampier, we'll go Nate Johnson. My second may even be, I don't think he leads, but I think he gets up there as maybe Hunter Andrews.
Ooh, all right. I like it. So Josh Furlong is a believer in the Swiss Army knife approach for this Utah offense, and I don't hate it, Josh. I'll tell you, I could see both of those things happening. And I asked Kyle Whittingham directly about Hunter Andrews on at Media Days, and he just whether he did it on purpose or not, he just glossed. He didn't even say anything. I wonder if he's like, nope, secret weapon, can't talk about it.
It's true though. I mean, I think he really believes that he's a much bigger Britton Covey, if that makes any sense, right? Like, I think he can do so many different things for this team that it's almost like you talk about him, or you don't want to talk about him because they're so excited about what he can do.
Well, we're all excited about it. Looking forward to seeing you out at the paltry media availabilities during camp. And we're 50 days away from the football season, Josh. Almost here.
I love it. We need football. I'm tired of talking about it. Let's go talk about games, not just talking about hypotheticals, right?
Well, thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds great. Have a good one, man.
Josh Furlong, KSL.com, Utah Insider. We'll start hour number 3 next. I went too long in that one, so we're going to double our breaks. And then we'll get to you with a PGA Tour leaderboard update to start off hour number 1. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for a PGA Tour leaderboard update from the Scottish Open, brought to you by Uinta Golf. Celebrate Uinta Golf with their best golf sale this week, only at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Get there right now. Uinta Golf. Who's leading at the Genesis Scottish Open? James Peterson.
So I got to get we acknowledge our errors here on the show.
Just gloss over it. Just pretend that we were fully aware of the two PGA Tours and gave the wrong leaderboard update yesterday.
We did. I gave the ISCO Championship or ISCO Championship, however you say the name, yesterday, and said it was Genesis Scottish Open. And yeah, the Genesis Scottish Open has a lot more big names at it, which makes sense to me because I've heard of this tournament. So I was shocked at the lack of big names that I read off yesterday. Yeah, that was the wrong tournament. So today we have the Genesis Scottish Open leaderboard for you. One thing we got right is Tony Finau is not in the field. So there's that. Chris Gotterup is your leader at 9 under. He's 11 under for the tournament, 9 under for the day. 2 shots up on second place, Harry Hall. Ludwig Oberg is tied along with Matt Fitzpatrick at 8 under. Some big numbers today, too. 9 under, 6 under, 5 under, and 7 under between those 4 names I just read today. That's kind of your top 5 there. Elsewhere in the top 10, the American Jake Knapp is tied with a bunch of folks at 7 under, tied for 6th, and that rounds out your top 10. Rory McIlroy in that group tied for 6th as well, 4 shots off the lead, as they now officially turn the page to the weekend. Tony Finau again. The only accurate thing I read yesterday about the Genesis Scottish Open in this segment yesterday OC, Tony Finau not in the field. So at least we got that right for the folks yesterday.
Right. Hey,
PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by Uinta Golf.
All right. Thank you. Well done on that one. All right, circling back to something we talked about at the beginning of the show today. When you paid attention to Big 12 Media Days and you digested as much as you could based on what coaches had to say at the podium, in radio interviews, everyone, all these social media blogs, everyone's got a little snippet of something from these coaches. And one of the things that really struck me is how uncomfortable a situation it is for head football coaches right now in college football to not really know where the playing field is at when it comes to the recent changes with NIL, with revenue sharing. Everyone that we talked to in the Big 12 had mentioned that, they made a point of emphasis that we are fully funding the $20.5 million. And nobody had a clear answer on exactly how it was going to be distributed. The only one that really surprised me when we spoke with the Kansas play-by-play voice, and I was like, I assume that Kansas is in a weird situation where football is going to get less money than normal because basketball is going to get so much. And he pushed back and said, you'd actually be surprised. Football is probably going to be getting that 70-75% of the total money. It's like, what? How? How are you going to sustain your blue blood status in basketball and fund that football program when you're not in the Big Ten or you're not in the SEC? From a revenue sharing standpoint, though, it sounds like, and I guess it does make sense because it'll be harder to get NIL for football than for basketball. Businesses are going to support basketball.
Yeah, we talked about in the first hour, you pointed out the changes to NIL because of the College Sports Commission. Collectives are now becoming illegal based on that, which is just wild. But they're going to have plenty. Those businesses in the Kansas City area throughout Kansas are going to, and in places like Durham, North Carolina for Duke, Chapel Hill for UNC, that are basketball is where they get the most publicity. It's not where they make their money, but it's where they get the most publicity, and it matters most to those fan bases. They're going to get plenty of NIL, and they'll be able to now broker them. They'll just have to broker them directly with those businesses, which like I said in the first hour, OC, I like it long term. I don't believe that the model's gonna stick long enough for it to matter long term, though. And
we're so close to full employee status and collective bargaining and college sports
who knows
being like
whatever the next regulations are going to come in that's going to kill this part of it. Like,
well,
it's just,
it took 4 years effectively for the first run of NIL to get so wild that people were like, nope, we have to do something different.
Yeah.
And the thing that is
I'm
being
on
done
board
different.
with collectives going away.
Collectives
this timing is awful.
The problem with collectives going away is that the collectives were just now figuring out how to actually execute.
Yeah, the timing of it and the clunky organization that you talked about is the reports that you read and paraphrased here in the first hour. It's just, if you're going to do this, you have to launch with much better organization.
The
and
College
they've
Sports
dropped the ball
Commission
again.
Is not ready at all to enforce anything.
And
they
shouldn't have launched
Kenny Dillingham, Scott Satterfield, Lance Leipold, all these people. I'm sure Kyle Whittingham was asked about it. I didn't hear his exact comments about it, but everyone was asked about it. And every comment I've heard about their reaction was, yeah, great. But what are they actually going to do? And you heard athletic directors. Mark Harlan joined us, and he said what he has to say, right? I would love to get the truth serum in Mark Harlan and say, do you think they're actually going to be able to enforce any of this? On our airwaves, and you can find that at ESPN700sports.com in the on-demand section, wherever you get your podcast.
That Big 12 Media's page, the Big 12 Media Days page is still up at the top of the page, and if you scroll down a little bit under day 2, you'll see the Mark Harlan.
You can listen to that and interpret it however you will, but look, Mark Harlan said what an athletic director has to say, that yes, I believe that powers that be are actually going to do what they said. But coaches are not quite as beholden to that type of power. And coaches like Kenny Dillingham, who has a big voice now as the defending champion coach, he was like, what are we allowed to promise? And what are we allowed to say to recruits when we're trying to beat Alabama for the same guy, or we're trying to beat USC for the same guy, when you say they can't give you what they're telling you? That's the big thing here for Big 12 especially, because Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Alabama, they're still saying we're going to give you a guaranteed NIL deal. The new rules, pay attention, everybody, the new rules, official on-paper rules of college sports, say that you are not allowed to guarantee anybody any money coming in as a recruit. You are not allowed, under the new College Sports Commission rules, which may or may not be enforceable, you are not allowed to tell somebody, I will guarantee you $5 million to come play quarterback for us. I will guarantee you $100 to come play. You have to, under the new rules, broker those deals as true, valid NIL deals between a business, not a collective, but between a business and a player. And that business deal cannot be in place until after the player has committed. Now, we know that there are ways around this, but officially, the enforceable rules, or maybe they're unenforceable, the rule book says you cannot tell those kids, I'm going to give you this much money until they're actually committed to you. Well, how do you get them to commit unless you can tell them, I'll get you $5 million? How do you get them to commit unless you say, look, I spoke with the manager at, Ken Garf, and he says, for you as our starting quarterback, he's got $1 million NIL deal. Not allowed. You're not allowed to say it. You're not allowed to put it in paper, especially because that creates evidence in what would eventually be, if the College Sports Commission decided it was so, would be an investigation into your improper recruiting practices. So these coaches who 4 or 5 years ago were told, hey, man, we're going to start allowing these kids to make money. They were like, all right, so how are we going to execute that? Well, you're going to have a collective that manages it for you. You're going to have somebody who, I don't know, worked for the athletic department before, or was a big-time business guy before, or was a CFO somewhere before. We're going to bring that individual in, and they're going to manage our collective. All right, cool. So what do I have to do? What you have to do, Coach, is you have to say, this is who I want, and this is how much money I think we need to be able to give him, because this is how much money our competition's going to give him. And then the collective was the one that actually had to do the legwork. I can't believe I'm defending collectives, by the way. This is I know
I thought we would agree at least with the notion that it's a good thing that collectives seem to be out of the NIL space because it's not true NIL.
In the long run, yes.
But you're kind of defending them now.
But what I'm defending is not so much the collective, but what I'm pushing back against, I suppose, is the falsehood, the idea that with this settlement and with the powers that be deciding that now enforcement responsibilities belong to the College Sports Commission, that they're actually going to be able to do any of it successfully.
Yeah, it's like you replace the NCAA with another organization who can't enforce rules. That's what it feels like right now.
And I really don't want the situation to go back to the Wild Wild West that we've had, but I also don't think that the Wild Wild West is gone because, again, the lack of enforcement, how are you going to get your punishment arm in place if you can't even get your, okay, green light arm in place? Utah State and other places reporting that nearly all of the NIL deals that they have submitted for review to NIL Go, which is the new app, have timed out on their 5-day timeout period. And if you time out, meaning no one reviewed it, nobody approved it, it automatically gets rejected. So you have to resubmit it. As many as 2 or 3 times, these NIL deals are being rejected based on timing because there's not enough people, there are not enough bodies, there are not enough reviewers to say, yes, this is a legitimate business deal. This is a legitimate endorsement between a player and a business in the community or a national business. And by the way, it affects the mid-level recruit, the low-level recruit, way more than it affects like AJ DeBonsa, okay? Because you talk about Devin Dampier, you talk about Spencer Fano, you talk about Lander Barton. Those guys are the ones who are getting money or are going to be able to get money from Marriott hotels. They're going to be able to get money from, I mean, any car dealership, any big-time restaurant chain, any whatever, right? Swig wants to sponsor you, cool. They're going to be like, yeah, I'll give you some money, Kyle Whittingham. I'll give you some money, Utah football, for your starting quarterback. I'll sign a piece of paper that says we have an agreement between the starting quarterback of the Utes and my business for him to smile for a picture or for him to be in a commercial for me or whatever else. That's a legitimate business deal. I'm happy to be part of that. Where it really gets muddy and it really gets weird is like the Wayshawn Parkers on down. That guy, the coaching staff is coming to you, or a representative of the coaching staff, because coaches aren't going to have time for this. And it used to be the collective. Remember, it used to be the collective that you go to and you say, hey, transfer from Washington State, really like the guy. We're going to get him here. Here's the money we need to give him. Make that happen in the collective. And the collective just goes, all right, well, we have all this money from Ken Garf. We have all this money from Handy and Handy. We have all this money from Big Willie's. And they just give it to us, and then we decide who gets it. And we decide who gets it based on what the coaches tell us to do. Now, you're going to Big Willie's directly, and you're saying, hey, we actually need this to be a legitimate business and not just a collective that is cutting the check. So we need you to give $300,000 to Wayshawn Parker. And Wayshawn Parker is, I think, going to be a great player for the University of Utah, but why would the local business know that? Why would the local business be prepared to cut that check as an endorsement deal? When you're talking about the like not famous dudes, the mid-level guys or the brand new cats or the 3-star recruit whose name doesn't appear in any headlines, that's where it gets a lot more complicated with this NIL stuff. And it's gotten to a point now, again, it's insane that I'm saying this, even out of my own mouth, it feels weird, where the collectives became a necessary evil in order for schools to execute in this new world of funding. For the NCAA to turn over authority to a college sports commission that is so understaffed they can't even review the submissions and then expect that, all right, we're actually going to enforce that Oregon's a bad example, actually, because Nike can just do, like, Phil Knight will just say, yes, it's a Nike deal. Yes, it's a Nike deal. Yes, it's a Nike deal. So Oregon, scratch what I said about Oregon.
He knows all the players, too.
So Alabama, right? Alabama's collective in a really good spot. The businesses, like, what is the College Sports Commission going to tell Texas Tech? Yeah, this kid endorses your energy holdings company. That makes perfect sense. Like, that billionaire donor doesn't have gas stations, James. It's not a deal between him and Maverick. This Cody, what's his name? Cody Williams or something?
Cody Campbell.
It's like, if he was the owner of Maverick, all right, every player gets a deal with Maverick. Is the College Sports Commission going to go, yes, the energy holdings company? That's a legitimate business deal.
Which you don't see many.
He's an oil speculator.
Yeah, you don't see any commercials or even social media ads for that kind of a company. So how do you justify that they're endorsing you? Yeah,
the new rules on paper, and again, they're probably not going to be enforced in the next 3 years because that's how long it's going to take things to even out and smooth out. But the rules say, according to the new rule put out by the College Sports Commission, that the business deal has to be done between a student athlete and a legitimate business that provides goods or services to the public. If you're Nike, there's a lot of goods and services from Nike in my closet. That makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're an oil billionaire who made your money by drilling for oil and then selling that oil to ExxonMobil or selling that oil to some refinery and making gasoline out of it, I don't like the College Sports Commission is supposed to say, yeah, that's a legitimate endorsement deal.
They might be able to say, hey, loophole, we sell these goods, oil, to companies that service the public. Like, I don't know. That's going to be.
It's just the point is, right? The point is that this commission is being asked, and not even being asked, they're being given the authority to decide what is a legitimate business deal or not. So I have no doubt, actually, that they will say, this guy's a billionaire and he wants to put his money in college sports. I'm not going to upset that relationship. I'm not going to deny that.
And he is going to be brokering direct deals with the players.
So they'll figure out a way to approve that one. But the money that used to go to collectives now has to be filtered in a different way and now has to be submitted. And we have to ask this brand new creation for permission to spend our money, our being the collective, to spend our money the way that we were purpose-built to spend our money. Sorry, collectives, you're gone. Like 80% of the collectives in the country, according to Mark Harlan, in Division I, are gone, are done, are dismantled, are dead. All right. Okay, now College Sports Commission.
Brave new world.
I'm a tight end on the University of Utah football roster, all right? I was told I'm going to get a livable wage. I'm going to get $4,000 a month to come play football for the University of Utah. That money was promised to me by the Crimson Collective. That money was promised to me by whatever. I need to go and I need to say, please give me that money. And now the College Sports Commission says, no, you don't get the money. Who am I mad at now, James? Am I mad at the University of Utah? Am I mad at the College Sports Commission? Because I don't get to talk to them. I get to talk to my coach. I get to talk to my operations guy at the university. And I get to say, I'm not practicing until you get me this money. Yep. Well, hold on. We're going to get you the money. You've got your revenue sharing check coming. Yeah, I know. But I need to pay bills for my family. You promised me this much money. Give me my damn money. Like, you know how many of those conversations are happening right now in college football right now, because we are 11 days in to when the revenue sharing checks were allowed to be sent out, right? And those 11 days have also shut down the collectives and shut down the previous revenue streams for who knows how many players. So what do you do if you're a coach? What do you do? This is a real question. What do you do if you're Kyle Whittingham? What do you do if you're Kalani Sitake? You say, I promise you we're going to get you this money. How do you know, coach? Because it's not up to you anymore. It's not up to the collective anymore. It's up to the NCAA, effectively, because the College Sports Commission is just a bunch of people who, and I guess it's Deloitte that's overseeing this. It's just like, how do you know? Well, what's the best way you can guarantee it, James? You go through the illegal methods again. You go back to the bagmen.
Bagman
you go back
is
to the,
back.
You go back to the Lendale White finding a duffel bag full of cash, because I said it before, I'll say it again.
Allegedly now. Okay.
Revenue share. No, that was not alleged.
No,
that was
Lendale
White said.
Yeah, he did say that.
I found that money. I don't know where it came from. Wink, wink. Like, that's not alleged. That's so.
Oh, man.
So now you're in a situation again where you've got to decide, I need to get these people this money. You're not going to have a place, you're not going to have an agreement between parents, players, high school coaches, AAU coaches, when you get into the basketball world, where we go back to a place where, like, hey, man, look, 75% of that $20 million is going to the football team. This football team has decided that they're going to give every player the same salary. And that's good. That means your son is going to get $100 and something thousand to play for the University of Utah, or to play for BYU, or to play for Oklahoma State. Families are not going to say, all right, we'll take that. They're not.
No.
Because they've watched Malachi Nelson, and they've watched Cooper Flagg, and they've watched AJ DeBonsa, and they've watched all these people who are getting millions of dollars. And a lot of these people are getting those millions of dollars from collectives that are now defunct. So they're going to say, okay, thank you for the $150, but I also was offered $1 million on top of that $150. So where's that coming from now? And now coaches and operations people in these football programs are going to have to figure out how to expedite the approval of an NIL deal through a different method, through an app that is not working, in order to get money into the hands of student athletes, in order for those student athletes to feel like, yeah, it's time for me to show up to practice. Do we realize how insane this is? And that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's certainly not sustainable, which is why it's imperative that the College Sports Commission, this new commission, get its act together and get enough staff, get enough funding, whatever it is that needs to happen to get them to a place where this new system that they're trying to introduce actually works. Because I don't think people around college football want to go back to the bagman now that they've been able to do this legitimately. They don't want to risk. There's probably some, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's enough that are like, yeah, we want to go back to these shady, underhanded deals that we used to do. Like, I don't think I would. I would
look, and the shady, underhanded deals were fine for some schools.
Yeah,
like BYU had a minor involvement in shady, underhanded deals. Okay, we know that.
Yeah,
people have admitted that. They have massive involvement in the legal deals. Massive, right? And it's helped their athletic department and their basketball and football teams especially elevate to a level that a lot of us thought they would never get back to again. Then NIL becomes a thing, and okay, now because of I really think it's just the makeup of that community. People were not as willing to do the shady stuff.
Yeah.
But this is legal, and I'm a multimillionaire, I'm a billionaire, I'm an owner of a business who loves BYU and loved my time at BYU. Yeah, this is legal now. Allow me to contribute.
Let's get in on this. And there's no way there's no way. I say that without really knowing figure of speech, but there's no way I can see Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley wanting to do the shady, underhanded stuff too. Obviously, it wouldn't be them, but there's certain departments, certain programs that are just like, no, like, can we just keep it legal some way in a way that it works, please? This was a good thing. In as much as it was an inconvenience for us, we had a good thing here.
At the end of the day, the College Sports Commission, which is the new name for the NCAA, right? This is kind of like the KGB is now called the FSB. It's the same thing. All right? It's
not the KGB doesn't exist anymore. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
It no longer exists.
It's just like
bad information.
HBO turned into Max, and now it's back to being HBO Max.
Yeah, that was wild.
They're the same thing. Okay, so the NCAA and the College Sports Commission, this new authority, they're the same. And somehow we have to trust that in the next 50 days, they're going to figure out how to get it right so that promises made to players and their families are delivered upon without this bureaucracy.
And legally.
And by the way, there are too many fans out there. There are a lot of fans out there who are just like, I don't care if they get their money. They should love the school. I understand that stance. I do.
It's not realistic, though.
But guess what? They signed deals.
Yeah.
They were promised something. If your son or daughter is promised because they're an elite athlete that they're going to be millionaires by the time they're 21, and this governing body steps in and says, actually, with finger wag, I'm not going to let that happen. I promise. If that happened to my kid, I would lose my you-know-what.
Yeah. And, think about it. I know that same segment of college football fans don't want to think about it as a job, but put yourself in the shoes of these players. Imagine if you were recruited to do a job, you're recruited to a company, and they promised you a certain salary, and then once you signed everything and you came in for your first day of work, they said, "Oh, you know what? Actually, we're only going to be able to give you a fraction of that salary." You would not be with this attitude that you're asking these college athletes to have of, "Well, I'm just so glad to be part of this organization." No, you'd feel really bad. You'd be really mad about how, okay, even though I joined this organization for other reasons besides the money, I want all the money that was promised to me. That's just the real world. And unfortunately, the real world, for that segment of the fan base especially, the real world has come to college athletics.
All right. Airing of grievances. There might be people with some grievances they want to air in conjunction with this. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We will air our grievances on the Sean O'Connell Show. But before we take the break, I need to remind all of you out there that the Steel Vault, Utah's premier medical spa, right in the middle of Holiday, Utah, has tons of deals going on right now, specifically for our ESPN 700 listeners. 20% off anything you book if you go to steelvault.com. That's STEELE, steel with an E at the end. Vault.com, 801-878-9976. I'm talking receding hairline treatments, bald spot treatments, anything for the crow's feet or the excessive frown lines that have built up on your face over the years. If you're having hormone issues, if you're not sleeping as well, if that weight that is just stuck around your midsection is not coming off the way you wanted it to, if you just want to hook your spouse, your significant other, up with a nice little, beautification treatment. Maybe you want to spend some time in the Elysium device, the red light therapy. They've got it all in one spot at Utah's premier medical spa, the Steel Vault in the heart of Holiday, 801-878-9976. Tell them OC sent you. Book something for yourself. Book something for your life partner. Everybody comes away happy and get 20% off when you mention ESPN 700. My friends at the Steel Vault will hook you up. Airing of grievances next on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Time now for the airing of grievances. James, I got one. I got to get off my chest. I got to do it right now. Grievance aired with subcontractors, really in any business, any trade, who do not stay consistent on quotes. Okay? Homeowners have been through this experience. It is always better probably to do your own work if you have the knowledge, if you have the time, if you have the ability to do so. That is not the case for most of us. Not all of us are, certified plumbers, electricians, HVAC specialists, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a situation, a little plumbing situation needed to be done, James. All right. I was out of town, as is often the case when I'm traveling for the PFL and doing some of that stuff. This time it was while I was at Big 12 Media Days, okay? Had a little bit of an issue with the irrigation in the yard.
Oh.
Not the end of the world, right? Because you could turn on the hose and you can,
Yeah.
you could spray things down, but still, it's a first world problem.
Inconvenient.
You want to get your sprinklers working properly, right? So, wife made a phone call. Sprinkler company comes out, gives her a quote, all right? I said, no, that's too expensive. Let me handle it with somebody I know and trust. I've got a sprinkler guy, landscaping guy that I used to work for back when I was a teenager. Most honest guy I know, one of the best people in the world. And I was like, I will handle this, all right? So I did. Got the leak fixed, got everything taken care of, fine, all right? And it was not, by the way, necessary to do the huge, expensive quote that this company had given to my wife. And that's why I went with the other person, okay? So this morning, I'm out, before coming to work today, I'm out in the yard, in the backyard with my children and my dog, and we're having a great time. And my mom is in town to help watch the kids when my wife is at Wimbledon, and everything's great, right? And my mood is just as good as it could possibly be, James, until I'm like, all right, well, it's time for me to get going to work. I go out front, and the first company, the one that my wife had talked to, has showed up and has started digging this massive hole and is doing this big valve replacement that I told them I don't want to do. Your quote was ridiculous, right? So I was like, whoa, what's happening here? I get into this little conversation, and they're just like, well, like, we've already taken the old one out. We've already disassembled. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, all right, well, tell me what you quoted my wife. James, he said, it will not be more than, I know what they quoted my wife. Okay. I was testing the honesty.
Yeah.
I know exactly what they told her. He said, it will not be more than $500 more than they told my wife. And a number they had told my wife plus $500. It will not be more than.
Don't worry. It's not more than $500 more than what we quoted you.
He didn't say that he had quoted my wife something else. He said, I knew the number he'd given my wife. He gave me a number $500 higher. And I said, that's ridiculous, and it's not what you told my wife. So which number is it going to be?
Yeah.
And then he gave me this long spiel about how it can sometimes take longer, and I said, I'm not paying you even what you told my wife. I said, I didn't want this job done. You guys never talked to me. You told her you were coming back on Wednesday to do it. I was being rude, but I was like, this is ridiculous. If you want to do this job, then you will do it for this much money, which is $500 less than what you told my wife you were going to do. Yeah. Or you can put my stuff back right now, and you can be on your way. Grievance. If you're going to give somebody a quote, you can't change that quote 2 days later on a whim. Oh, and by the way, 2 days after you said you were going to show up. So grievance all over the board right here, James.
Yeah, that's frustrating, OC. We dislike honesty in general here on the Sean O'Connell, or dishonesty, excuse me, in general on the Sean O'Connell show. We hate that kind of dishonesty. Yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you, OC. You ready for my grievance?
Yes.
My grievance. So I've got a smaller one, and it's have you ever seen the it's a 90s era sitcom, News Radio? OC.
Okay, I love news radio.
Do you? Okay.
News radio, by the way, was kind of like our first exposure to Joe Rogan.
Yes, it was. It's pre-Fear Factor Joe Rogan, and of course pre-podcaster Joe Rogan, pre-UFC Joe Rogan. Why is it that we can't get that on any streaming service?
Is news radio not available anywhere?
It's not on any.
So, James,
like,
I will join you in
what
this
is that
grievance.
about? It's such an underrated '90s sitcom, and as a guy who wanted to get into radio, it was fun to discover. I discovered it well after the show was over on live TV. And you're looking it up. Maybe there's some good news. I have not looked it up in a while, but in the last few times I've looked it up, it's not there. I miss watching the show, man. I miss me some Jimmy James and some early Joe Rogan and some Bill McNeil,
who was played by the late great Phil Hartman,
and so well.
Yes.
Maura
Tierney was in that one.
Yes, she's great in it.
Andy Dick, who's terrifying.
Whoever it is, what's the actress that plays Beth? She's one of my favorite characters too. The secretary.
Vicki Lewis.
Vicki Lewis is anyway.
Wow.
A very underrated sitcom. Let's get it on a streaming service already.
Well,
Okay,
good
come on
grievance. Well done. Good grievance.
now. Yeah.
All right. 2289 grievance. Quit calling college football players college players. They're minor league athletes. We might have to change that.
Well, I mean, college player is still accurate though.
College player by itself does not suggest amateurism, although
Student
historically
athlete
it has
does.
been.
Student athlete does it, and Spence Checketts is great about this. He says the student athlete term is fake. It's brought up to it was invented to keep this farce of amateurism for as long as they did.
However,
so it's college athletes is kind of an accurate term.
However, it is still accurate.
It still is because
you are an athlete.
Yeah, it still is, but
that's why they were able to use it. Because even if you're like, no, that's not what it is, they're just like, well, technically, yes, it is.
We're not calling them amateur athletes, are we? We're calling them students and athletes. So yeah, I'm not. You know how I am with semantics. I'm not totally on board with that. In agreement with that grievance, I think college athlete is okay. I like that much better than student athlete, even though you're right. They're both accurate.
1624 grievance. I understand that the entire universe revolves around the almighty dollar, but can we not see Christmas or Halloween stuff in stores yet? I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, but the 4th of July was last week. Can we not wait for a couple extra months? Is this happening already?
Oh, yes, it's absolutely happening. And the people like my wife who love decorating, they love fall decorations in particular, they'll tell you that the problem with the idea of this is too early to have Halloween decorations out is that the world is so far down this road, this decor world is so far down this road that if you wait until August to buy, out of principle, to buy or September to buy your stuff, it's picked over too much. All the good stuff's gone.
Can I tell you this?
This is kind of how it's gone.
I know there's that picked over argument to be made, but what is wrong with all of us not just waiting until the day after Halloween to buy our Halloween stuff? Everything is at least 50%
That's
off.
true.
Why not go to TJ Maxx in January to get all of your Christmas decor? It's there, and it's cheap. Why do we do this? Why are we buying inflatables for the front yard and all this crazy stuff when it's full price? We are idiots. Any one of us who do it, trust me, I'm guilty of it.
We're all guilty of it in some way, whether it's with decor or something else.
It's like you absolutely know. I understand why you don't do it with your Halloween candy.
Yeah.
Because that goes on sale, but you don't want to save that for the rest of the year. The thing is, though, this decor, like the inflatable pumpkin, is going to be just as good next year.
Yeah.
Why do we not just wait for the sales?
I'm
fools.
I'm with you on that. That's actually the way that I prefer to buy shoes, like sneakers, basketball shoes. Like, so I'm not enough of a sneakerhead to get actual basketball shoes that people love to collect, like Jordans or whatever, real Jordans. But I'm always like, I'm just gonna wait till ones that I think look cool. Yeah, they're not Jordans, but I think these look cool. I'm just gonna wait till they're on clearance in the summertime, and I buy like one pair a year, and I'm always satisfied because like these look cool, and they were like $50 instead of $150.
James, I love sneakers. I have a lot of shoes, and I think I've paid full price for like 2 of the 100 pairs I have.
You find the deals.
It's crucial for me in order to enjoy something that I got a good deal on it. And I realize that's a problem when it comes to things like home improvement, which I just ranted about. Like, it is so crucial to me that I feel like I have to get a good deal, that I have screwed myself sometimes by like, I'm going to wait till I get a good deal on this flight. And that doesn't happen. You don't get a better price on the flight. If you got to buy the flight, you just buy the flight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's something wrong with my brain where if I pay full price for something, aside from food, I like can't enjoy it nearly as much.
You did it the wrong way. I know a few other people that have that same mindset. My brother is one of them. He loves a deal.
I love it, even like a perceived deal.
He gets like energized when he finds a deal, and it's amazing. I chuckle at it. I worked with someone else that's like that at a different company that he knows where every gas station's about to close, and he goes and they have to clear out all the inventory, so they sell everything for like 70% off. So he goes and buys the gas station basically.
My kind of guy.
Worth of food. And anyway, at the previous job I had, there'd be a table with like all the crappy gas station snacks.
Yeah.
And it's like he didn't care what they were. He just went, it's 70% off. Let's go.
My poor wife, it drives her absolutely insane because
I love that kind of person, though. It makes me
she'll just be like, hey, we need a new like shovel. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, yeah, we do need a shovel. I'm not going to go to Lowe's to get the shovel. I'm not going to go to Home Depot to get the shovel. I'm going to go to like one of those like Big Lots or one of those like discount stores. And they maybe will have a shovel there, or I'll go to NPS. You know what NPS is? And I'm just like, they're definitely going to have a shovel there. And she's like, just go get the shovel. What are you doing? It doesn't have to take an hour to go get a shovel.
Those liquidation stores.
Absolutely.
They all have different names, but there's liquidation stores. I know lots of people that buy their washers and dryers there. Like, yeah, they've got a dent on it. They marked it down like $300.
You are talking about my people right here. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I need a deal on everything.
I'm as frugal as the next guy, but I'm not the same type of way where it seems to like energize me because I found a great deal. I love running into that kind of person. So that might be why we work so well. One of the reasons why we work so well, OC, is that I get a kick out of that kind of person.
4446 says most decor businesses pulled their decorations before the actual holiday. You know why? Because they're getting ready for the next one.
Yeah.
You got to, like, December 23rd, they got to get ready for Valentine's Day.
But they're definitely doing those great sales you're talking about on the day that they do pull it, whether it's September 27th or November 1st. You can get a better deal.
Let's go.
But
by the way,
it might be a little too picked over.
You know
the
what?
stuff they have a deal on, you may not like that.
Minor grievance with Bill Riley today.
Oh,
for trying to play gotcha with me and my start bench cut, and saying that Eric Weddle was more a corner at the University of Utah,
and then ultimately starting him.
Than he was a safety. Don't try to play gotcha with my guy Weddle. All right, here's what we know about Eric Weddle as a safety.
Pre-NFL we're talking about, because obviously he
was a 2-time defensive player of the year in the conference as a safety. He was a consensus All-American as a safety, and he was a second-round draft pick who was actually the first draft pick of the San Diego Chargers that year. They didn't have a first-round pick as a safety. Eric Weddle, in his Utah football lore, yes, he was an incredible corner. He was a freshman All-American corner. He was a great starter at corner. The Fiesta Bowl team, he was a corner. But the dude is a safety, all right?
The fact that he may have technically had more snaps or more starts at corner in his career is a testament to how versatile he was, not a definition of what his position was.
And also is a testament to the fact that sometimes you just lined up Eric Weddle against the best receiver on the other team,
It
And
didn't
they were
matter
like-
what position Weddle was technically playing. You just did it.
You were just like, oh, we got Calvin Johnson in a bowl game. Well, Weddle, you're a corner today, and you're going to play against him, and you're going to shut him down, baby. And he did.
And it's a testament to the football character of you know much more than I do, but I've been able to glean the kind of character he is as a person. We know that that's impeccable, but the football character of him is that he's like, I don't care that I'm now acclimated to playing safety. I'll be corner when Calvin Johnson is playing, if that's what you guys think I should do, and I'll be awesome at it. So it's one of the many things that makes Eric Weddle awesome. But I'm with you, like, to quibble over 9 extra starts and saying that means his position is different than what people know him as, I think that's, minor grievance on Bill. We love you, Bill, though.
You know, and if we run the poll for corners, maybe Weddle still starts at corner for you, but he was the best version of Eric Weddle. And every version of Eric Weddle in a Utah uniform was a really good version, but the best version, the most decorated version, and the drafted version was the safety version.
Should I do my start bench cut?
Yeah.
I don't think we got to that yet.
What is it?
I'm starting Weddle like just about everyone else.
You got to.
And it is so tough to choose between Rojo and Morgan Scalley.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a lot more familiar. I'll admit I'm a lot more familiar with Rojo's game. I watched that 08 team and that era Utah football team more than the Morgan Scalley era, the Fiesta Bowl era team. But I'm with probably most everyone else. The differentiator has got to be Conference Defensive Player of the Year is a big differentiator for me, and just that Rojo's certainly an icon in his own way, but Morgan Scalley is like even another level of an icon for the university, probably a lot because of his coaching career now. I'm gonna give the slight nod to Morgan as benching him, cutting Rojo. So starting Weddle, bench Scalley, cut Rojo. Tough decision.
All right. I will see Rojo in the fall, and I'm going to tell him that you cut him.
Normally a nice guy, but I don't know about that after that. Call us, Rojo, 877-353-0700. If you have a grievance, we'll let you air it on the other side if you want in the next segment.
All right. Taking a quick break. We'll wrap things up and send you into your weekend next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right. Sending you into your weekend on the Sean O'Connell Show with a little crosstalk. Scott Mitchell holding it down on the drive for Spence Checketts today. Scott, how you doing?
You know, I'm vertical. It's a funny thing. My daughter, I took her to lunch yesterday. It's her birthday. She's 24. She goes, I'm almost 30. And I'm like,
No, you're not.
well, you got a long way to go just to get to 30.
Yeah.
And like 30's not so bad. Try my age. So I'm living. I'm good. It's good to be here. Excited about doing Spence's show, so we'll have fun.
All right, we do start bench cut as we through the off season. 50 days away from the college football season.
Okay.
Start bench cut safeties from the Mountain West era of Utah's college football.
All right.
Weddle, Scally, Rojo. Start one, bench one, cut one.
Well, you got to start Weddle. This isn't hard.
Okay.
Scally, you're going to bench him.
Okay. You're cutting Rojo?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, man. It's a cold world, but you do have to cut one of them. So it's either going to be Scally,
right,
who is your head coach in waiting. You can't cut Scally. He might be listening. He might find out.
That's why.
Morgan, we're not cutting you on the
Although
show.
I should just cut him just to spite myself. Get you, Scally. Out.
You're not a big HBO watcher, right? Did you watch Sopranos?
Part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we did that. We did HBO dramas, start, bench, cut, Game of Thrones, Sopranos, and The Wire.
Oh. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
That's my starter.
You're starting Game of Thrones. I started Game of Thrones.
Heck yeah. Yeah. It took me a minute to get into Game of Thrones, though.
Okay.
The very first scene when they're in the Northland and they're kind of –
it's a little much.
It was like, where's this going? And then it's like, oh, boy. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, if you – I won't say that. I'm not going to throw Jason Buck under the bus, but he had a reason why he really liked Game of Thrones. I'll start there. Let's see. I really liked The Sopranos.
Good. But so's The Wire.
Yeah. I didn't really get into The Wire, so Sopranos, and we're cutting The Wire.
Okay, The Wire's cut.
Yeah.
I ended up cutting The Wire because it doesn't hold up quite as well.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that so much of the plot is based around payphones.
Right. And James Gandolfini, I mean, he's so good, right?
Man, rest in peace.
Yeah.
James Gandolfini.
Yeah.
Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
What a show.
Sad deal.
All right. What are you going to talk about on the drive today?
We're just going to make it up as we go along.
I like that.
Actually, we got Furlong. We're going to talk to him. I'm sure talk some Ute stuff. Bowler's coming on. I really want to get his take on Frank Layden. So that'll be a lot of fun. Andy Larson, of course, the Jazz are now in Vegas with Summer League, which I'm very intrigued by the way.
You've been enjoying it?
I'm not normally an intrigued person, but I figure, hey, this team, most of the starters are in the Summer League. So, I mean, so might as well get a preview on the Jazz and who they are. So it should be it's been entertaining so far. It's been fun to watch. So we'll talk about that, and of course, there's always stuff to talk about in the NFL, which I love to do, and we'll chat about that as well.
Stay tuned for the drive. Scott Mitchell substituting for Spence Checketts. It'll be Scott Mitchell and a jar of antacid tablets getting you through into the weekend. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.